Alan Robson with you, travelling around the Loch Ness area, and tonight we have a few things in store for you that are, well, out there, let's just say. First of all, we may just be depositing a demon or two into your house. Now, it's up to you whether you go with it or whether you don't. You are in control. How brave are you feeling tonight? And then a little bit later on, I intend to do the most I can to come face to face with the Loch Ness Monster. You're not going to believe what we have lined up tonight. Alan Robson's Night Owls destination, Loch Ness, beyond the monster. We're going to be taking you on a journey into darkness, a journey into, well, something that you will not expect. When you mention Loch Ness, you instantly think of the Loch Ness Monster. Well, we're going to be centering on him, there's no question about it. But we've got so many other things too. We have spoken to eyewitnesses, we've spoken to police officers, members of the armed forces, people who have seen the Loch Ness Monster. We got all of that for you. But we go far, far beyond. Because we're also going to be popping into a place that Kenny became acquainted with last year. And frankly, you're not really looking forward to going back, Ken.
I'm really not. Like I say, one of the things that's really stood out for me from the last trip to Loch Ness was this cemetery, because it was one of them things, you get loads of foreboding when you go there. So much trepidation. You just look at the place, it's dark, it's scary, and you look at it's eerie, it's got this horrible feeling even as soon as you walk through them awful gates.
And there's good reason for that, and we're going to be telling you that story a little bit later on. Also, we've been baiting traps for the monster all week. Well, we have the biggest piece of ginger bait to come. You're not going to believe what we're getting up to on Britain's Most Listened To. It's the Night Owls. But first, I think maybe it's never a bad thing to have a little bit of a retrospective and learn what we can from that. This is a world-famous site for being one of the most cursed pieces of land anywhere. And this is what happened when we took a listener about 5-6 years ago. The black magic ritualistic burnings in this corner. Oh, hang on, I'm being summoned. Kenny's been into this tiny little thing, and there's stairways that lead down. And I must say, he's a game guy. He's physically in there now through this tiny little hatch. There's no door to it. It's a complete square box with a chimney at one end, and Kenny's in there, and
it's got the Beast 666 Crowley. That's what it's got, the Beast 666, then Crowley.
Can you get a photo of that?
Yeah, and it's also got your last human trip, Hell Belows, from death to chaos.
From death to chaos. This is a place of darkness. Climbing through that hole.
Is it underground as well? There's an underground thing here.
Can you get into it?
I'm going to have a little walk down and have a look, but it's very creepy. I'll have a look down.
Okay, so this little box in the bottom, we found a very interesting dark place. It's a window that has no glass in it anymore. Kenny's climbed through it. Satanic ritual has taken place. But what you got to do when you're in there is open yourself up and sense things and feel things and maybe understand and get a flavour of the kind of people that would come. And I think people will travel the world to come to a place where Aleister Crowley, because he was like the great witch master, he was the warlock, to climb in there, commit ritual, sacrifice things, maybe burn them on an altar where the chimney can fuel it. Stories that I've heard talk of like 50 people being at a ceremony and things, so that's obviously not it. But it's in a cemetery. If you're looking for a dark place, this is... What did you get down that hole? Kenny's still in there. You seem very high off the ground. What's actually there, Ken?
There's actually a floor, a wooden floor, just above this, and then there's like a secret chamber underneath. Now, in the secret chamber underneath, I've just spotted some kind of weapon, and I'm not sure what kind of... I thought it was a brush at first, but it's not. It's like a weapon with a big stone thing on the end. I've taken a picture of it, so...
Can you get it out?
I don't want to touch it.
Really?
I don't want to touch it. It's oppressive in here. Oppressive. With, like, sweat that's pouring off his and you can feel like the atmosphere in here. You just want to get out as quick as you can. It's oppressive.
Right. Kenny, if you want to get out of there, do you need a hand?
Yeah, I just need to breathe.
Just needs to breathe. Bullskin Cemetery, recommended by the Night Owls, and I thank you for that. You know, cemeteries are blessed places, places where you pay tribute and show love to your family. I'm standing next to the grave of Private A. Fraser, Machine Gun Corps artillery, died on the 4th of July in 1917 during the Great War. And some of these go back far, far, far longer. And yet this is a living cemetery. It seems that it's still being used. And we're blessed. And we are certainly doing it, no disrespect, by trying to experience the kind of things that Alistair Crowley came here for. Grave beneath my feet now, November 1789. He was aged 42. And Lieutenant Tax in... late Tox in Knockachime, who departed this life on the day of November the 17th, 1789, age 42, with Catherine Fraser, his great love. This is a tribute to the love and filial affection. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. You know, people in Britain... I'm not going to correct myself. People in England seem to treat graveyards as if they're things that aren't of value, and scumbags kick them over and paint spray them. And you know, these are monuments of great beauty, and if you treat them with respect, you get so much back from them instead of just knocking them over. There is another one that's fallen here. Oh dear. This gravestone has been pushed over. Those bikers, you know, I mentioned them before, they're just going back along the road there. In the memory of John Shaw, Master of Darkness, gone to meet his saint, the Holy One, Satan, and it's been kicked over, as if some Christian can't abide an alternative religion in their cemetery. And it's lying on the floor at my feet right now. Smashed stone. There's a corner of it. But just a few seconds ago, something was swooping around our head, and it vanished underneath a tile. There's a small bat that came out. It's vanished under a loose tile beside the chimney on top of this amazing little lodge. Kenny's still in there. Kenny, I would get out. Yeah. I would get out, but be very careful. I think you're going to have to come out legs first if you can. Of course, the bats feed on small insects. I love bats. I'm a fan of bats. And to see them in a place like this where Crowley's name is mentioned everywhere. Kenny's easing himself out of the window now, and we're going to get back into that vehicle. But we've seen bats now. We've seen Kenny, who's going to jump down. Good lad. Be careful. Oh! He's on his backside. Dust him down. Are you all right? Oh, yeah. That's good. So he's been in the cubby hole through this cemetery, a sort of a Blair Witch experience, because some of the woods are very torn and tangled around here. It was interesting. We found a grave over there that had somebody who was a professor of the dark arts who sold his soul to Satan, and the Christians have smashed it and they've wrecked it, and it's lying flat on the ground in the far corner there. Everybody else here, I presume, are Christian. Huge stones and gravel path in my way as we take you through the big metal gate, and we just open up and we ease ourselves out of here. Big metal gates with arrowhead spikes to try and keep you out and behaving yourself. Bullskin Cemetery. And now we're heading back to the vehicle.
I'm just looking to my left, like a little burnt-out fireplace.
Right, because that's where the sacrificial burnings apparently had taken place. Is there anything in there? Like, can you see anything? Or did you go down those stairs?
Closer. I went to the third one, but it's so cold and so black, I can't see a thing. Right. I felt quite sick, actually.
Nausea is very common in places like this.
Oh, my candle's going.
Because there shouldn't be any...
Oh, I better get out, there's a knock.
There's a knock?
Alan, I'm just...
Get out, get out, get out. Get out, get out. Put the phone in your pocket, get out. Get out. She's good now. This girl's never sworn, and hopefully she's climbing out of there. I can't hear anything. Are you out? Oh, she's struggling. If she falls down there, she's going to fall 6 foot onto the ground. She's in big trouble. Is she out?
Alan?
Hello, where are you?
I'm at the gate.
Oh, you hit the gate?
Yeah.
You should be in the Olympic team if you... What was that noise?
I don't know, it was from directly underneath feet.
Jeepers, because that's where we were telling you to go down to. Did you get out all right without hurting yourself? Because I know...
I've hit my knee. I went out head first because that was pretty high.
You're 6 foot off the I hope you're bouncy.
I don't think I could go back in there, Alan.
No.
I really don't.
Alan Robson, live from Scotland.
We're not far away from the cemetery now. We're going to be reaching it any time soon. I must say that it doesn't get any lighter, and the trees kind of cutting across, creating this strange shade from the rain, and it is a bit wet and rainy tonight. Kenny's still looking a bit white. We're taking you to the land of Satanist, the man described as the most evil man on earth, Aleister Crowley. Now, we've got a few things that are said to be cursed. This cemetery is one of them. We're going to be telling you the story of all of the children who burned to death here. But first of all, we discovered something while we were researching this that's very interesting indeed. And it seems that the more evil you are, the more likely it is that you're related to someone very, very famous. Now, when we were doing a show called Alien Jesus, we discovered that there were things like the lizard people, you know, people who were all interrelated, believed to be, perhaps, from the stars. Well, imagine if the most evil man ever to walk this earth was related to the president of the United States, and maybe related to 2 presidents. He lived from 1875 to 1947. He was called the most evil man on earth. Some of his early rituals, many people claim, involved the death of young girls and small children. And yet, this man managed to create a whole world and a whole religion that people across planet Earth even now still believe. Aleister Crowley, the Satanist, the Diabolist, the witch. And yet, from time to time, we say, well, how can somebody like Aleister Crowley thrive when the world looks at him as a monster? Well, maybe he had connections. Maybe he had people close to him, people with power. And is it possible that President George Bush, and therefore President George W. Bush, could be related to Aleister Crowley? In 1924, Crowley was living in poverty in France. He'd just been kicked out of Italy by Mussolini for a whole range of wicked activities, including orgies where he used any woman he could get his hands on. An old friend and famous literary figure, Frank Harris, took him under his wing. Harris lived with a woman by the name of Nellie O'Hara. Now, Nellie had a friend in America called Pauline Pierce, who'd been born Pauline Robson, who was married to Marvin Pierce. Now, he was head of the McCall Corporation, a very, very powerful industrialist. And in early 1924, Pauline travelled to France to stay with her friend. And there it was. 4 individuals came together who never really should. Frank Harris, Nellie O'Hara, Pauline Pierce, and Aleister Crowley. Now, the year 1924 has a very special significance in Crowley chronology. According to his own diaries, during this period in Paris, Crowley went to create something that I think is a masterstroke for any red-blooded man. he created the supreme ordeal, linked with his realization, it was kind of like a challenge. How can you create the ultimate satanic thrill? And he said it was to attain the grade of ipsissimus, the highest magical achievement within his faith, within his belief system. Now, the exact nature of this ordeal remained mysterious because he didn't want anybody to find out what it really was. But a clue can be found in his description of the rite of eroto-comatose lucidity. A lot of big words, but we'll work them out together. First of all, the candidate, always a woman, is made ready for the ordeal by general athletic training and by feasting. I think most men would call that wining and dining. On the appointed day, he is attended by one or more chosen, experienced attendants whose duty it is to exhaust him sexually by every known means, and also to rouse him sexually by every known means. Every device and artifice of the courtesan is to be employed. That's every orifice to you. Every stimulant, every drug, every drink imaginable known to any physician on the planet has to be used. Nor should the attendants reck of danger. They've got to hunt down ruthlessly their appointed prey. Finally, the candidate will into a sleep of utter exhaustion resembling coma. And it is now that delicacy and skill must be exquisite. Let him be roused from his sleep by stimulation of a definitely and exclusively sexual type. Yet, if convenient, music, wisely regulated, will assist. So, you can attain this order two ways. By being a man who preys on a woman to help him reach that level of attainment. Or alternatively, you can be a woman who therefore goes to someone like Crowley or somebody else in the circle to exhaust them and attain the same gradings. It's immensely clever. It's bull, but it's immensely clever. So the attendants watch for signs of waking, and the moment anybody tries waking up, all stimulation must cease instantly and the candidate be allowed to fall again into sleep. No sooner has this happened, do it again. And you keep going indefinitely until the candidate is in a state which is neither sleep nor awake, and in which his spirit, set free by perfect exhaustion of the body, and yet prevented from entering the city of sleep. Therefore, they commune with the most high and most holy Lord God of its being, maker of heaven or earth. The ordeal terminates by failure, the occurrence of sleep invincible, or by success, in which ultimate waking is followed by a final performance of the sexual act. The initiate may then be allowed to sleep, or the practice may be renewed and persisted in until death ends all. The most favourable death is that occurring during the orgasm, and that is called mors justi. As it's written in his books, in his rituals, let me die the death of the righteous, and let my last end be like his. If he did undergo this ordeal in 1924, we have to presume that the people that he did that with, including Nellie and Pauline, functioned as his assistants. Now, Pauline returned to America in early October 1924, and on June the 8th, 1925, not a year later, she gave birth to a girl named Barbara. Barbara Pierce married George Bush, who eventually became the 41st President of the United States. But who was Barbara's father? The chronology indicates that the only person, the only man to be with her around that time was Crowley or Marvin Pierce. The truth regarding Crowleyan sexual rituals is disclosed only to the highest initiates of the Otto, in a document misleadingly titled Emblems and Modes of Use. So the question is Aleister Crowley the father of Barbara Bush? Even she might not know for certain. We have no way to prove it unless they allow us to take their DNA. However, more than one person has noticed the resemblance. And if you look on our website, you'll see pictures of Aleister Crowley and Barbara Bush side by side. I think you believe that the family resemblance is absolutely there to be seen. Many of you might recall the former First Lady's haughty and thoughtless remarks after the aftermath of the Katrina disaster.
What I'm hearing, which is sort of scary, is they all want to stay in Texas. Everybody is so overwhelmed by the hospitality. And so many of the people in the arenas here, you know, we're underprivileged anyway. This is working very well for them.
Those in the know were reminded of Aleister Crowley's similar reaction to the loss of life which occurred during the ascent of Kachinjunga, an expedition he commanded. This is precisely the sort of thing that which I have no sympathy whatsoever. That's cold. So it's possible that George W. Bush related to the world's most evil man. But we know for certain that on his father's side he is the 24th grandson of King Henry I, and King Henry VII was insane. This would make for an antichrist combination, as well as supporting the idea that select bloodlines control everything. President Bush is also supposed to be closely related to Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, and Colin Powell. I wouldn't be surprised if George W. Bush were closely related to John Kerry as well. Look at the photograph of Aleister Crowley. Power. And how you get it. The things you're prepared to do. Do you think George W. Bush and his dad directly related to the most evil man on earth?
Barbara Pierce married George H.W. Bush, who eventually became the 41st President of the United States. And they had a son, George W. Bush, the 43rd President of the United States. Could the wickedest man in the world, Aleister Crowley, be George W. Bush's grandfather?
Pauline Pierce is Barbara Bush's mother. And you look at the picture, you know, and Barbara Bush looks very much like Aleister Crowley, and that would make George W. Bush the grandson of the beast. 666, and that's what Aleister Crowley called himself.
Finally, we recognize our last recipient, not simply for the years he spent as our 41st president. We honor George Herbert Walker Bush for service to America that spanned nearly 70 years.
Raise taxes and I'll say no, and they'll push and I'll say no, and they'll push again and I'll say to them, read my lips.
The remarkable Barbara Bush.
I would remind people that every single morning we all awaken to a safer, freer world because of George Bush.
George Bush, George W. Bush, son of President George Bush. Revenge is his and revenge is sweet. One of the closest elections in American history. Bush has won.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices. Secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil.
Robson, Beyond the Monster.
You can hear the windscreen wipers rolling from one side to the other. Rain pitter-pattering down on top of the roof of this car. And we're here, Boleskine. This is the place where a lot of people have chosen to make a point of killing children, essentially. We've had black magic rituals here. We've had sacrifices. We've had terror and ceremony of every kind. And yet this place, before Crowley took it over, before witches were hanged here, in the cemetery, right in the centre of Boleskine, there is one tree, and it's a tree that you will recognise at once because the lower branches of it go out to the left, to the right, to the north, to the south, the east and the west, because this was the gallows tree. Is it any wonder that Jimmy Page would have to buy it? Led Zeppelin's guitarist loved the stories, was fascinated with Aleister Crowley, and that's why he wrote this song about the tree that we're looking at right now. Hangman. Have you ever heard a silence like this? Now, approximately 100 yards behind me, we've got Loch Ness, but we're at Boleskine. A few years ago, we called it Boleskine. I didn't know any better. The people here call it Boleskine. It is the place favoured by Satanists and devil worshippers from all over the world. There's a lot of bad things happened on this ground. Directly behind me is the Boleskine Cemetery. Now, just getting to this point today, we've already had... last time we were here, Kenny and I... Well, I didn't come out at midnight. Kenny did, took a listener to this place, and you had an owl follow you, and we met the same owl tonight.
We did. It happened again there. The owl just come down next to the windscreen and then just flew off, and I thought, here we go again. And once you get here, it's just that eerie, horrible feeling again.
It is. But also we have Gaynor here. Now, Gaynor, you've never been on anything like this?
I haven't, no. I'm actually shaking.
Now, back at the hotel, we had an experience where you noticed something black moving across the room that we were just doing the show in.
Yeah, we did, yeah. It was quite an unusual feeling, to be honest with you. It wasn't like you seen it straight away, you almost sort of felt it. It was.
Yeah, and then you looked and the black thing moved, and I saw your face and registered something moving on the left-hand side. We've had a few things. What I want everybody to do, put your hands together. Everybody here, put your hands together. Repeat after me. Protect us this night.
Protect us this night.
From those who walk in shadow.
From those who walk in shadow.
Keep us safe.
Keep us safe.
Let no harm befall us.
Let no harm befall us.
We come with respect and love.
We come with respect and love.
And cast out everything that is negative.
And cast out everything that is negative.
Blessings be.
Blessings be.
Blessings be.
Blessings be.
Blessings be.
Blessings be.
Right. Now, the first thing I think we should maybe do is just find out a little bit about what we're dealing with tonight, because it's one thing to come out on a thing like this when you know everything that's gone on here. One of the most controversial figures in British history cites Aleister Crowley as an occultist and a seeker. Others say he was the most evil Satanist and black magician, and throughout his life he was obsessed with magic and he gathered a lot of followers. Some claim he encouraged them to carry out a range of criminal acts, including sacrificial murder and cannibalism. But it was one book that changed his life. It was called The Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Magi by Abraham the Jew. He believed what the book espoused was that each person had their own holy guardian angel assigned to them at birth, and that would watch over them until death. You could also get knowledge from your guardian during incantations. Now, Crowley believed that demonic power could also be imparted to you, the power over life and death using spells and rituals. And this is what pushed Crowley into his position as Britain's most famous Satanist. Now, I don't know whether you heard, but there was a rattling noise came from the cemetery there. Did you get that, or was that just me? I hope the mate picked it up. Directly behind me, a rattling noise, almost like, come on, easy, we got too many torches here. Although Crowley was actually bright enough to know that Satan was merely a concoction of the church to scare non-believers into the church, he did know that there was a power for good and that there was a power for evil, a demonic force that he would actually learn how to control. He needed a place far enough away from society to be able to summon his demons and gather his power. And where better than Boleskine House on the eastern shore of Loch Ness. He bought this old 18th century mansion in 1899, and yet 30 years earlier, a woman, Margaret Smythe, had been murdered there by a violent husband who believed that she cheated on him with a local merchant. He waited until she was walking across the upstairs landing and pushed her through the wooden balustrade. He then raced out to hunt for some birds, returning in the afternoon to find a horrific accident. Yet he admitted to doing it on his deathbed whilst confessing to his priest. There's voices directly behind me as well. You got that too? Voices behind me. I had a feeling in the car they knew we were coming. There was no question about it. So...
Yeah, the owl. That was the owl.
That's an owl, that's all right. Owls are our friend, they'll look after us. This guy on his deathbed confessed to his priest. He admitted that he'd raped 3 women and drowned a baby here, rather than have to admit to fathering a servant's child. And here was a man that Crowley would maybe approve of doing what was necessary to look after number 1. It's said that the ghost of Margaret haunts the house, and numerous shadow demons have been found there, and they infest the cemetery, which is directly opposite the mansion. We're standing just outside the gates. Now Crowley, more voices, Crowley could sense the blood that stained the land here. He described it as the centre of 1,000 legends in this glory of loneliness. The cemetery and mansion had been stolen from the church, as there'd once been a church standing on this site. A group of diabolists had been found out in Inverness and driven to this area. 2 Christian devil worshippers waited until the church was full of rather pious and opinionated Scots, and they piled firewood against the front and back door and under the windows and set it on fire. 48 people were burned alive, and by the time the fire was put out, the wooden-built church was completely gone. Boleskine has 1,000 stories attached to it. People disappearing, tourists calling in and never being seen again. Crowley had influence on everyone in Inverness. A local butcher refused to serve him because he didn't want to have to deliver to Boleskine. So Crowley created a spell and sent it to the butcher. The next day the butcher was found near the loch, bleeding to death. The spell had made him hack off his own arm with a cleaver and wrap it and deliver it to Crowley. The arm was placed in a glass jar held at the house for a decade. And when locals complained to Crowley about assaults, hauntings here, and a few deaths, after summoning demons, they decided to run amok, terrifying the locality. They're out there living around Boleskine. And if you seek not to confront all of that evil, you stay away from my home and you stay away from my cemetery. That's what Crowley said. Crowley continued to create his own religion, a system of dark magic called Thelema. It was loosely based on do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, meaning that you are the law and you can do anything to anyone at any time. His followers are still out there, following this practice all over the world, and they view Boleskine as the focal point, or Qibla, of their belief, in the same way that Muslims regard Mecca or Christians Bethlehem. It was the place where the spirits would congregate, gather and merge their strength and power. Although the house has changed many hands, it remains the root of a dark and blood-soaked demonic faith. And when Crowley left, locals say that the demons scared away all potential buyers. And in the 1970s, Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page, who's been on Night Owls many times, bought it and restored it. Voices again there, just briefly. Being obsessed with Crowley, he used the house in the video. The song remains the same in a movie in the 90s. Whilst he was here, He found scrawlings made by Crowley himself and was angered that a local farmer had chopped down a tree in his cemetery. That tree had been used during a time in Scotland known as the cleansing. 28 witches had been hanged on this tree, and that tree stump is in the cemetery behind me. The tree had once been used to dispatch villains until those poor female village elders were murdered by those who sought to steal their land. The house was eventually sold to a private family, the owner choosing to live abroad rather than face the never-ending stream of Crowley devotee devil worshippers who kept turning up at his door. Now, should you hold a copy of his book Magic, which is magic spelt with a K, there's a simple ceremony that you can do to invoke demons. You need to be on bullskin land and be in a circle holding hands. And then you must use a little bit of black Latin to open a circle, to open a portal where they are. Never guess what I've got in my bag here. It's a copy of the cursed book. There it is. Well, you see, the thing that I'm going to do next is kind of kick off something worse. I'm going to spit on his book and curse him and see where we go with that.
Okay.
Right, there's Alistair's book. Okay, Crowley, coming for you. I need one more thing, and that is that. Okay, look, quiet everybody. This is, as you can read, Alistair Crowley's magic book. Now, to summon up his demons, you have to be on Burleskin land. Kenny, you're shivering. Are you cold? Or are you you just shake? Right. This is what you have to do, and it's a thing called Black Latin. Garvella Ariste Revenieri. Once the portal is opened, then those things that live in the darkness can pour towards you and swarm over you because they want your positive energy and they'll touch you with their negative energy. The ritual continues. Reveal yourself, ye who dwell in permanent shadow, those who died before your time. Show us your wonder and magnificence. Let us hear your voices trapped forever in darkness. Raise your voices. Let us feel your touch. Come to us. We the unworthy seek to be amongst ye. Touch us. Let us know you are by our side. Become one with us. If you seek to walk among us, come, 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 or cursed we all shall be. Gavala Sentini Gaius Revenieri. Now quiet. Come on. You cowardly bitches. I spit on your book. Let's go in.
In the car.
No, all together. It's fine. Right. Come this way. Burleskin Cemetery. The big metal gates are here. There's a... Hang on. Let's make sure that the bolt here is open. You move in, and we've got arrow spikes on the door that are actually quite sharp. We're moving down into the cemetery now. We are mob-handed, but we will be leaving people behind. Now, first things first, down here on the path. Watch yourself because the path is quite soft under your feet. Right. First person. Richard, step forward. Can I ask you to use the torch to get as far across there as you see where the wall is, where the tree is? I want you about 5 yards in front of the wall. Can you get there? But when you get there, I ask you to turn the torch off. Is that okay? Richard's on his way. Let's move down. Walk up together. Come on, everybody. I think we should leave somebody else around here, maybe. This is a beautiful place. Huge black... was black at this time of night. Trees, gravestones all around us. Who wants to be next? Hang on, we've got someone being sick here. Are you okay? Are you sure? Right, thumbs up. I'm not sure about that. I think, Tony?
I can't by myself.
You can't by yourself?
Although somebody else is with us.
So what's the matter?
I'm scared.
I know, why?
In case someone gets us.
Well, it's not the living you want to worry about in here. I was going to leave you here while we head off into the graveyard. Can you think you can do it? Give it a try, just for a while. You see where you're standing over there? You see in between those two pillars? So that nothing can touch you. See the two pillars? Yeah, stand there. We're walking into the cemetery. Off you go. Go do it. Scoot. Go. It's okay. No, just go further down. You'll manage. Down you go. In between the two pillars. Whoa, what's the matter? There's people buried all over the place. It's a cemetery.
Well, they've just been buried.
They've just been buried. Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, go for it. Down you go.
I don't want to stand on them.
You're not standing on them if you stand in between those two pillars.
Okay.
Come on, Gaynor. You may well be next. Hang on, we got a panicked. What happened? What happened, darling? Did you hear anything? What was it? Oh, you're shaking. What's up? What's happened?
Something got past us.
Something went past you. Whoa. Kenny, you stay here.
I'll stay here.
Okay?
It's okay.
Could you tell what went past you? No, blah.
Okay.
Absolutely shaking and rocking. Kenny, can I leave you a smaller torch, if that's all right? I know, because yours is actually an ounce more powerful, and I'm looking for something in particular here. So now we've got Gaynor and I moving on. There is the remnants of the tree. Ah, and there it is. This is it. Do you see?
Yeah.
Gaynor?
I can see Alan, I'm not going in.
No, you're going in. Of course you are.
Alan,
No, you are.
not.
Of course you are. Come on.
Alan, no, I can't.
Yes, you can. Of course you can.
Is he just going to leave us?
We're going to... Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where we're going.
No, I'm not going in.
Why not?
I seriously can't do it. I'm so freaked out. I know, before I came here and I said, you know what, it's going to be fine, it's going to be a really great experience. And then we were driving along that road and there was trees towering over either side. When we pulled up outside this graveyard and I seen it, I thought, do you know what, I just can't do it. I really can't. I've got the guts to do anything, Alan, but I can't go in there.
Right, well, what I need is, if I'm going in, I need Kenny, but I need to find a place to put you guys first, so come on. We found the building that is tied to the Crowley curse. We're getting a few noises, but nothing. Could one of you stay here? Gaynor, off you go. Go. Go.
I'm standing here?
No, I want you over there.
Oh, Alan,
Beside that grave. There's a grave. You're walled in on three sides. Now, the reason that it'll be quite good for you to be here is because the walls will keep any sounds and whispers in. Because there's pretty much four walls on it and two doors out. So, Gaynor, along you go.
Well, I'm going to stand here then.
No, just go to the end and you can hear them without hearing kind of doors. You don't want to be round here where something can come up round the corner. You want to be in the middle there so you can... Your eyes will become accustomed to the dark. Shout out if you hear anything. A little bit further back, Gaynor.
No.
She's... Okay. Right. Now I'm going to climb into that hole.
Oh, Alan, I can't do this.
Yeah, of course you can.
Alan, I can't.
Of course you can. It's all good. Torch off, Ken. We found the place I'm going to go in.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
There's loads of lights everywhere.
Gaynor's running.
Let's go.
Gaynor's running. Nobody's doing anything.
What's behind you? Serious?
No. I saw it too.
Did you see it behind that?
Absolutely, 100%. Look at that.
I thought it was Richard. I thought it was Richard behind
Did you see that as well?
Yeah, I thought it was Richard behind you.
Sure.
Did you see the black thing?
Black thing just walking behind you.
No.
Honestly, I swear to God.
I saw it too. Absolutely.
It was walking behind you. I thought it was Richard.
Richard's being great. He's holding his ground. That's just a tree behind us.
Is it a tree, is it?
Yeah. Ken, I need a bunk up.
Right, you going in now?
I'm going in. Yeah. Now this is... Yeah, go on. But you got to leave me. Right. Now, I've never been in here. I've heard of it. I know. Now we know there's bats in here. Ken, Torch, can Gaynor keep a hold of that, make sure that we're still running.
Okay, I will do, yeah. It doesn't look very pleasant, to be honest.
Horrible. It's horrible.
You took a photograph. What was that? Might have just been a cobweb or something.
It's a fireplace in there where obviously they've been doing the...
And that's where the bones of the burnt some children in there. Right, Kenny, can you... I don't know how easy you can. I know you're carrying the sack that's got to go elsewhere too. Right, I don't want to hang around.
Right, just...
if you don't mind.
Grab that a second.
Got it.
Right, at the moment then Alan's just getting a bunk up off Kenny into this small, very small square window. Alan's at the moment got his head through the window. His legs are both hanging out. He's gone down head first.
Oh my god.
It looks like...
Who done that? Who touches on the shoulder? Someone touches on the... One of you touches on the shoulder. You must have...
It's alright, we're going to go now.
Did you touch us on the shoulder?
No, but I'm going to go. No, I didn't.
Richard! What the f***?
The tree, that's the tree.
That was a tree. Right, who touches on the shoulder?
I've got my leg. I don't want
What's happening?
Right, something tapped us on the shoulder.
I don't know, I just want to go. Like, I literally just want to go.
Right. Something tapped us on the shoulder. Definitely tapped. Just touched us on the shoulder. Definitely tapped us. I felt it. I thought it was one of yous. I thought it was one of yous.
What's going on out there?
Right. Something tapped us on my left hand shoulder. I mean, tapped us on there. I thought someone would come back and just done it like as a joke type thing. Something definitely touches on the shoulder.
What?
What's that creeping noise?
It's
just a tree.
It's just a
tree.
Kenny, I'm coming out.
Right.
Listen. Shush, just a second. Listen. I'm not moving. Do that again. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it again. Listen. Are you getting this?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's look, footsteps. One after the other. Listen. Walk round me now. Come on. Show me. Thank you. Show me more. I want to see you moving. If you don't want to move inside, move outside. We have people there. Come on.
Yeah, come on. Whoa.
Alan's just climbing out of the window, legs first.
Alright.
Yeah, come on.
Alright, come on my shoulder.
Where are you?
I'm here. Keep coming. Right. On my shoulder.
I'm there. Whoa, Ken.
You alright?
Yeah.
Sure.
Let go.
Right. Alright. Everybody get together.
Did you hear stuff in there?
Oh, Alan, honestly, something touched my shoulder. Just touched my shoulder. And I still don't know what it was. Horrible, horrible place.
It wasn't just a tree blowing?
Nah, something definitely touched my shoulder. I mean, it actually touched it like that, tapped us on the shoulder. I would like to get out.
Where's Richard?
He's still across here.
Come on, let's find him.
Richard! Don't let me be lost.
I just felt it was just a really weird presence around us. I just didn't feel comfortable at all.
Well, Kenny and I both saw like a black thing moving directly behind you. But you said you felt something touch your leg. What was that?
That was as it was standing outside the window before, and it was just like a stroke along the back of my thigh.
I got one of them in there on my head, and it was almost, you know how somebody would pat your head if you're a naughty boy, kind of.
Yeah.
And you think, first of all, well, you've got a hat on. Could it be the rain? Could it be anything like that? But
oh no, I'm not going anywhere else again. No.
Oh, I'm game.
Oh, you can. I'm not.
I'd like you to take a photograph.
You didn't come across and tap me on the shoulder, did you?
No, I was here all day.
Right. Okay. Well, I got a tap on the shoulder. I got a tap on the shoulder, and there was a figure behind Gaynor.
I must say, right now, I am so scared. I am petrified. We're standing in the middle of the graveyard.
Listen to the noise. There's the noise that we're getting.
Can't see an absolute thing.
Did you hear that?
I heard the noise.
It changed its tone and then...
Who got worse? I know, Tony, you're still in a hell of a state, it seems. Are you all right now?
I'm all right now.
All right.
Get out.
Just want to get out. Let's move out.
I've got a heavy feeling we like.
I'm quite... Where it touches on the shoulder, I'm quite calm.
Where did it touch you?
On the left shoulder, just touched us there, just tapped us on the shoulder. And, and at the same time, I think Jane got her leg touched.
Right, okay. Let's go back. Get yourself a blessing of some description.
Alan, stop. This is counting backwards.
What?
It may not be recording. I don't know if it's recording.
Let's just start counting backwards. 48.
Oh, my God.
God.
What was that, mister?
No, it's
I'm going to go
impossible.
off mic for a second.
Okay. Excellent. So we've got something impossible happening with our sound equipment. To be honest, we're not recording.
I don't know. I don't think it is.
I don't think we're recording. Because if you record backwards, you speak in the tongue of Satan.
Oh,
that's lovely. Now we've just changed pieces of recording equipment because Kenny's has blown and an absolute impossibility. Richard, come on, you're a wizard technologically. You have built aeroplanes and flown the damn thing.
Yes.
You got a recorder here.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even recording, but it stopped recording what we had, and it's moving backwards, wiping it out, transposing what we say forwards into backwards speak.
I mean, for it to count backwards like that. Who knows? But what was triggering my iron detector? Everything could be sort of electronic. There's forces here that could be...
Did you hear that?
What's that?
I thought it was you.
What? We're talking.
It was like... Right.
Okay.
Ooh, nice chilly wind. It's a wet night. Now we're going to need you guys to cleanse this too. Those of you at home too, if you seek to cleanse yourself of anything that might have attached itself to you, you've got to carry out this blessing. It was given by Jean McIver, a leading Inverness holy woman. Repeat after me, those of you at home too, I might pay you to do this. Great powers of the north, the south, the east and west,
Great powers of the north, the south, the east and the west,
protect us, pray, from the dark ones.
protect us, pray from the dark ones.
Let them be swept from us.
Let them be swept from us.
And return to their nether world.
And return to their nether world.
We dismiss them from our world.
We dismiss them from our world.
And hold the light around us.
And hold the light around us.
Our white priest holds our safety.
Our white priest holds our safety.
And with wand and chalice,
and with wand and chalice,
we declare our respect to ye.
We declare our respect to ye.
Ye who walk among us in shadow.
Ye who walk among us in shadow.
Return to your darkness.
Return to your darkness.
As we leave ye, as ye leave us.
As we leave ye, as ye leave us.
We walk on in honour and in love.
We walk on in honour and in love.
Yet to the unclean we curse you.
Yet to the unclean we curse you.
To live forever in shadows black.
To live forever in shadows black.
Blessings be.
Blessings be.
Blessings be.
Blessings be.
Blessings be.
Blessings be.
Now, those amongst us, and they are around us, know we're leaving. And this is when you stand a chance to see. Got your book. Got your book. It's a stinker. Come to us. Show us. Come on. The last chance. We're leaving. We've had one in tears. We've had a leg touched, an arm touched, me hat patted. I hope you heard those footsteps in that tiny thing because they were just walking up and down. And then when you get to the bottom bit, kind of eye height, and it goes under the floor. And I went down there, heard a few noises. I wanted more. I'm greedy. I wanted more. But we've got more to do. We've got to get... Look, what's there? Are you making a
There's
light?
out through the trees. Yeah.
You see it?
Yeah.
Who? What?
No idea.
Where?
Two lights there. There.
Could that be a car coming up?
Could be.
Could be.
Could be.
Right, in the cars.
Alan Robson, Beyond the Monster.
Alex Campbell's worked on the loch for 40 years.
My first sighting was in the month of May 1934. I was standing at the mouth of the River Oich, expecting a run of salmon to come in from Loch Ness. I was looking over towards the Abbey Boathouse. Flat, calm, beautiful sunshine, 8 o'clock in the morning. And without warning, this terrific upsurge of water, head, neck, and one sloping long hump. Well, I estimated the head at 6 feet above water level, roughly 200 yards distant, and the body I estimated at 30 feet because in my imagination I said to myself 2 15-foot boats stem to stern. That would be near enough at that distance. And the head was turning, very nervously. I could see, very nervously. And I wonder, oh dear, what's this? And I shut my eyes 3 times like that, just to make sure it wasn't imagination. No, it was still there. And then I realised why the nervous state it was in. I heard the engines of 2 small trawlers just leaving the bottom lock of the canal, coming down to enter Loch Ness, you see. And I said to myself, this is going to be interesting, because if the creature remains on the surface until the first trawler appears, its bow will come within my line of vision and its line of vision. And that's what happened. As soon as the bow of the first trawler came in sight, heavens, upsurge, fantastic. Well, I was absolutely, I wasn't scared, I was just struck dumb, that if I had the finest camera in the world beside me, I couldn't have thought of picking it up, to take a picture. I was so staggered. Anyhow, I went home, looked up my book of prehistoric animals, and the nearest I could find in the book was a picture of the plesiosaur. But one thing I did make sure of, the colour of the skin, that particular occasion. I would say it was a slate grey. That was the first actually, and best sighting I had all down the years.
Now, I think a great many of you will recall when we were doing our Lake District special. We did a week from the Lake District visiting haunted castles, and one of the stories we told was Sir Donald Campbell and Bluebird, how, whilst trying to beat their water speed record, the Bluebird tipped upside down and claimed his life. Well, on Loch Ness, that we are overlooking right now, John Cobb managed to break the water speed record right here. And as he slowed down after breaking the record, thinking, well, nothing can go wrong now, he hit something. His craft hit what most people consider to be a wave, although at the time some people thought it could have been the back of some creature in the water. It cannoned out of control, and John Cobb was dead. We've heard of Alistair Crowley's curse on Loch Ness. We add to that a second curse. The Cobb Curse, the Cobb family curse, because they believed no matter how well John Cobb handled that ship, he was always destined to die. Have a listen.
John Cobb died on the waters of Loch Ness, fighting as always to win new glories for Britain. Only 2 days before, the Queen Mother went to meet the man we call the fastest man on earth, who is now to become the fastest man on water for Britain. In his new jetboat, the Crusader, Cobb had already touched a high speed during trials, and there seemed no reason why yet another world speed record should not be his. Afternoon, on the day that was to be his last, Cobb took the Crusader along the measured mile again, faster and faster, until he was traveling at 240 miles an hour. And then... there on the waters of Loch Ness, John Cobb was found. The glories that he had won during his lifetime were not for himself, but for his country. For John Cobb was, above all, a great Englishman.
We're told that this place holds curses, maybe. Well, let's add Mrs. Fensom's curse. And as you stare across the wondrous valley that houses Loch Ness, as the sun bleaches everything in sight, I think it would be really easy for you to think you're in Switzerland, or maybe the French Alps. Yet when the weather turns bad, winds up to 200 miles per hour, freezing sleet and snow, you can easily think that hell has paid you a visit. For years, in that Loch Ness, there really was a slumbering beast, just waiting to be found, lying there, unnoticed, in a quiet backwater of the loch. High up in the clouds, a plane struggling to battle through the thick snow, its landing gear freezing up, and the captain knew that something terrible was about to happen. When this Wellington bomber took off, the snow was already packed solid on the ground, yet still they were determined to take part in a routine training mission. As they sailed up into the air, they felt sure that the mild sprinkling of snow was certainly not going to hold them back. Yet on trying to return to the airbase, the captain knew there were a number of things going seriously wrong. One of the engines had failed. The plane was losing both height and speed, and the torrential blizzard was making instruments freeze, and the aircraft had no real idea where it was. I think if you are a pilot, you know when the plane is going down. So he ordered his men to bail out. Now the gunner was the first to leap out, and the others gazed in shock as his parachute just didn't open. So he fell and fell, finally smashing into the rocky crag and an instant death. 6 others landed safely in whiteout conditions, no one really sure whereabouts they were. The pilot and the co-pilot stayed on board as they were desperate not to let Arthur Robert to be lost, especially as Britain was so short of aircraft to face the Germans. This plane already had a great reputation. It was the veteran of 14 bombing raids across Germany, so the pilot needed to do everything he could to save her. Problem is, with the clouds so dense and so full of snow, it was impossible to see where you were going. And then, just for a split second, there was an ounce of clarity, and there, before them, the long, stretching Loch Ness. The captain miraculously brought the plane gently down onto the loch, and before sinking, both pilots managed to paddle across to the shore on a small dinghy. And as they paddled away, the plane began to sink down into 250 feet of water. And for almost 40 years, there it remained, an ornament gracing Nessie's front room. And it wasn't until 1976 that a group of American marine biologists found it wedged deeply into the bed of the loch. It had to be recovered. Arthur Robert was the very last of 11,461 Wellingtons. So, a charitable trust began collecting money to try and recover it from the grimy, peat-soaked waters here in Loch Ness. The poor broken body of Sergeant John Stanley Fensom, the rear gunner, was found nearby, long dead. He would later be interred at Holy Trinity Church in Biscot Churchyard in Luton. However, many believe his spirit remains here at Loch Ness. There have been thousands of sightings across the surface of the loch. When the mist pours across the water, there's often a tall shape moving over that surface. Some swear it's the big long neck of the beastie, yet others swear that it's the body of the gunner returning to where his life suddenly ended. No one knows how that parachute never opened, yet locals know that the loch's cursed. On one occasion, a cousin of Sergeant Fensom visiting the loch claimed to have heard the man calling out through the fog. In 1975, Joseph Murray of Aberdeen hired a boat to fish the loch. when a fierce mist rolled across the water and sat all around. His story chilled everyone. He wrote, "It was like being snug in one huge pillow all around me. And yet 3 impossible things happened. I do not create stories. I'm an honest man, and I'll tell you all straight. First, as clear as day, I saw a man wearing a brown jacket with fur on the collar walk by the boat, walking across the surface of the water. I saw him so clearly, I called out and shouted for him to join me in the boat. About 2 minutes later, there was a huge hammering sound on the side of the boat, physically moving it sideways about 2 yards. And then, just as I decided to row back to shore, using my compass to guide me to the correct shore, just as I started rowing, I could see the lights of the town ahead of me. So I pointed the prow of the rowing boat that way, and as I reached the shore, I looked across at the loch, and I saw the airman walking across the water. I could make out his grey uniform. I saw his insignia, later identified to be that of a rear gunner, and also the kit that he carried, including an open face mask. I shouted at him, and he seemed not to hear me, until I shouted, "Sergeant," rather loudly, and at that, the figure stopped. His face turned towards mine and actually gave me away. Now, could it be that after all the speculation, that the Loch Ness Monster is in fact a simple ghost gliding across the surface of the lake that would claim his aircraft? Is it his wife's curse that infests the place, adding its weight to that of the Satanist, Aleister Crowley? There's a lot going on right here. Alan Robson, live from Loch Ness.
Machines that set a standard that is far ahead of any of the world's aircraft. These are the first pictures ever to be taken of some of Britain's new hush-hush fighting machines. Machines that set a standard that is far ahead of any of the world's aircraft. Of the Vickers long-range bomber, we're not allowed as yet to give any details of performance, but we are able to say that under certain conditions it could fly non-stop for 8,000 miles. And its 2 950 horsepower engines give it a top speed figure that, when it's actually published, will be amazing. But what impresses the watchers most is its uncanny silence.
Calling operations room, Emperor Mother landed 0426. No sign of any other aircraft about. Still no sign of Diva Birdie. Over. Hello, group. Yes, they're all back now except Diva Birdie.
From this and other operations, one of our aircraft is missing.
We've just been talking about that incredible story and the aeroplane in the loch. Well, it's not in the loch anymore. It's in the Brooklands Museum, and I'm very fortunate because on the end of the line we got Julian Temple, who's the General Manager of Museum Operations. It sounds terribly military down there. Do you run them with an iron fist, Julian, do you?
Not really, no.
Okay.
No, I was the aviation curator here for 20 years and became General Manager just fairly recently, but I'm also responsible for the site and the buildings as well as the collections now, so...
Right.
But I've been here just after the Wellington came back from Loch Ness, so I started working here, so...
Now, when you say the Wellington came back from Loch Ness, it makes it sound like the aeroplane was just stuck on the back of a big wagon and there it was, in presentable form. Wasn't exactly that. What kind of state was it in?
Well, I think they used 2 big lorries. One was a big Queen Mary low loader, but it was a very much wreckage, really. But for most people's, in most people's opinion,
right.
There was no, I suppose, there was obviously optimism about it being restored, but no guarantee it could be restored back to the some of its former glory, but after many 100,000 man-hours of volunteers and 12 years, most of the work was done, so it's now on display.
Did this become a must put back to as near its original form because it was the last of the Wellingtons?
I think they were determined to do was not do what they'd done with a Halifax bomber at the RAF Museum a few years earlier in the 70s. They pulled one out of a lake in Norway and left it as found, really. And particularly with ex-aircrew involved here in this project, they were determined to make our Wellington look a bit more like it should do and stand on its undercarriage and at least be capable of being moved around in the hangar if necessary.
You see, it's hard for anybody to understand. Here's an experienced flight crew, an experienced aeroplane. It had done an awful lot before it came to hit Loch Ness. Was it ever fully explained as to how come they had to ditch it there? Because, an experienced crew, even in bad weather, traditionally get to a landing strip.
Yeah, they were flying at night. It was New Year's Eve 1940 to 41, and they were on a training flight, but the crew would have been primarily trainees.
Oh, right.
And it was a flying classroom, basically, with more personnel on it than would have been on a normal bomber mission. Obviously, the instructors and some of them would have been more experienced than others, but I think it was the engine failure in bad weather, and the only place they could see that was clear of mountains happened to be Loch Ness, which I believe the visibility perhaps was good enough to see the surface of the loch. So a ditching was the standard procedure at the time.
It was built at Brooklyn, so it's lovely that it's come back home.
Oh yeah, it came back to its home, its birthplace.
So, is there any truth in the fact that while the two lads were paddling back to the shore, that the monster dragged the plane under? Is that what happened here?
I don't think I've heard that one. There's lots of, I'm sure, local legend and so on. Because when they found the aircraft, really looking for the Loch Ness Wellington, it was in 1976. They were looking with an American survey team, and they found it. I think it was Klein Associates from America were doing this sonar survey, and ultimately identified the aircraft with the help of a chap called Robin Holmes at Heriot-Watt University, and he was the driving force behind actually recovering it. 9 years later.
Julian, thank you so much for having a chat with us. It's strange because while we're here on Loch Ness, it brings it home to you, I think, what it must have been like to come out of a bank of snow with gale force winds and just see this huge body of water in front of you. And I know pilots are trained for such things, but I think that's a bit of a bottle tester.
Oh yes, they could easily have drowned, I suppose, in the process, or not made a good landing to get out of it.
Oh, for sure. But Julian, lovely talking to you. Thanks for taking the time.
Good, thank you.
For weeks they searched, but yesterday this is where they found him. They vowed they wouldn't stop looking. It seems their perseverance has paid off.
The reaction, of course, is great sadness. So there is a slight relief in the fact remains have been found.
It's clearly a sad ending to this long search.
Alan Robson, live from Scotland.
We're on the road again. Kenny is travelling down alongside the darkened loch. We've got a place we have to be. But I think there's time for me to tell you about what happened back in the year 1297. The Scottish hero and warlord William Wallace, who Kenny and I researched. In fact, Kenny, in his regression back to a previous life, died fighting alongside the man, pretty much. Wallace defeated the English at Stirling, and suddenly all of England realised that they weren't as invincible as they thought they were. To a nation who believed themselves to be the greatest power on the planet, to be humbled by the uncivilised Scots was a major blow. Yet that victory also caused a major problem for the tiny village alongside Loch Ness of Drumnadrochit. A family called Murray, who were no friends of the Wallace, believed that the Scottish armies would be annihilated, so they decided to act on their best interest. Whilst all of the men of the town were away fighting, they began taking over. They butchered every boy child over the age of 3. They killed many of the women, usually after raping them. Bodies were stacked up at the loch side and burnt. The Murrays moved into the best homes and even began trading their stolen cattle, sheep, horses. Imagine just how they felt when word came through that Wallace had actually beaten the English, which means the land grabbers decided that they had no choice but to defend what they had procured. They didn't expect the men to be coming back, but they were, and they would not be happy. So as these brave Scots began returning home to Drumnadrochit in 2s and 3s, they were ambushed and slain, until one of Wallace's generals sent a rider to call their men to arms again, as the English were regrouping against them. And on getting to the town, he found that none of his fighters were there. On his way out of town, thinking that the men must already be on their way back to the fight, a woman from a local cottage stopped him to tell him what the Murrays were doing. Legend has it that Wallace himself ordered that justice must befall them. And although he needed every man at his disposal, he sent 100 warriors to put right the Orphy Rang. It was around this time of night when most of the Murray clan were either drunk, in bed with the women they'd enslaved, or feasting, that the men from Wallace decided to swoop. One building at a time, the warriors surrounded it, climbing in through windows or walking in open doors to slit the throats of every man they found. To their surprise, some women tried to attack them, and they were swiftly dispatched too. Finally, all that remained was the big house overlooking the loch, where Kenneth Murray was the new, self-proclaimed laird. The warriors literally hacked their way through his family, and also through his men, to get to his bedroom, where they found him unconscious with a drink. The following morning he awoke to find himself tied to a tree next to the loch. He shouted, "Someone will die for this!" And on hearing it, Duncan Campbell strode forward, carrying a small bundle. He opened it up and thrust it in the face of his captive. It was the blackened body of his own baby son, found in the ashen remains of a bonfire where the dead and living had perished. "Aye, someone will be dying today," said Campbell. "Would you hazard a guess as to who, you murdering bastard?" It took Murray almost 12 days to die, and he begged them to kill him almost daily. Those that witnessed his slow torture would spread such a fear around that no one would ever try and steal the land of any fighting Scot again. They started with his hands and feet, tearing off his fingernails, then salting the open wounds. Then his toenails, then crushing his toes with hammers, shattering the ankles, and then one by one cutting his toes off. They stripped off his flesh, cut off his feet, and sealed the wound with burning tar. All was enough to just keep him alive. By the 11th day, Murray was a torso, arms and legs cut off, penis and testicles nailed to the post that he was tied to. His eyes had been roughly gouged out. His nose was merely a gaping hole in the centre of his head. His tongue had been cut out. His ears had been clipped. All of his hair had been burnt from his head, and the only noise he could make was a wheezing gasp that seemed to bubble and froth at the side of his mouth. On the ground next to his body lay the teeth that had been torn out, his mashed and bleeding gums. Many of the women of the town, some of whom he'd raped, had urinated and defecated on him. So he was an insect's perfect buffet. On the morning of the 12th day, to everybody's surprise, Murray was still alive, in a fashion. Campbell then started placing kindling around his butchered carcass, and although he couldn't see it, he knew what was about to happen. He began to howl in this eerie, distorted voice coming from deep within his evil soul. A scream so loud and so filled with terror that they said, "Even the English will hear what happens to those who seek to steal our land." The flame was put to it, and Murray howled as what little flesh he had left began to burn and crackle. To this day, people have heard this banshee-like howl late at night as Murray screams throughout eternity for the murdering of the innocent ones. And when you stand next to this awesome loch, looking more like an inland sea, you half expect to hear it. So when people say there's just a monster to see at Loch Ness, there's so much more. Driving at this time of night, Kenny and I share one thing in common. We love driving at night, and yet there's certain places down here that you get that kind of chill, don't you?
You really do. When you come to these really narrow roads and stuff as well, and you're looking, you're thinking, where the hell are we heading? And you think, there must be something at the end of this, but it's very scary and very worrying.
Well, as we're on our way, there's just a sign in front of us saying Clava Cairns. So let's follow along this road. Thank you for coming out with us this time of night. We are not very far from the main body of water here in Loch Ness. We're just stopping at a crossroads where directly in front of us there's a couple of white stone-built cottages called Clava Lodge. They're actually holiday homes that some people are using. Clava Cairns is down here somewhere. Now, they're supposed to be standing stones and also burial mounds for numerous people, and they're supposed to also carry a curse, but Richard is kind of hunting. It's the site of an exceptionally well-preserved group of the burial cairns built around 4,000 years ago. We're talking 2,000 years before the birth of Christ. It's a Bronze Age cemetery complex, and it's got passage graves, ring cairns, curb cairns, standing stones in a beautiful setting, and the remains of a chapel of unknown date. Richard standing outside, wind the window down. I think it's straight down there. I think it's straight down, Richard. Dive in the car, let's head down there right now. And my apologies to you. We knew roughly where a lot of these things were. We want to be able to get to them very, very quickly. It's only about a mile and a half. Kenny is reversing back. We've got this huge truck that has a strange smell of wee in it today. I don't know why. Kenny, have you wet yourself?
Not today.
Okay. Which means that we're smelling actually old wee from previous days, which isn't the best of it. So we're reversing back up to try and find out where these Clava Cairns are, and I'm guessing that they're straight down because to the sides we have those National Trust lodges. So just in front of us in the red kind of Audi car we got Richard R. Buffin, who's taking point, and we are just kind of heading down there now. You know, we talk about things from about 100, 200, 300, 400 years ago, and we talk about it like it's ancient history. Well, now that's interesting. Just as we move down, we've come to a field, and the sky is very, very dark, and yet I just managed to catch the silhouettes of two really quite large horses over there. Farms to the right-hand side as well, with tractors and huge hay bales, and just losing the rear lights, just coming on from time to time as Richard ahead of us starts to brake a little bit. It's pitch black, and when you're going down these little tiny avenues, you're never sure whether you're on the right road or not. In a field just to the left-hand side, as we were making our way down here, there were strange sculptures. I don't know whether you saw them as well, but they were just kind of poking through the land, and one looked like there's one of the tributaries of the River Ness is on our right-hand side now. I think we're going to be crossing a small bridge, and a weak bridge, it says. That's not what you want to hear when you're in a truck as big as here. We're good over it, and we are off the weak bridge, and there's a rather large aqueduct to the left-hand side. Looks to be carrying maybe railway coaches. We're passing Clava Lodge. I think we have found Clava Cairns. Turning to the right-hand side, there is nothing on these roads. Half a mile. Absolutely nothing on these roads at all. We're only down here for about 3 days in total, and yet we're seeing so much. Pulling up the car park to our right-hand side, there seems to be a taxi there, so somebody's obviously either took a taxi and asked the guy to wait. But here they are, the Clava Cairns, the burial mounds, and It's one of those car parks where they've sunk wooden staves into the ground, which means we never fit these suckers into it. Now this is spooky, so let's get out, have a quick look at these. Got so many stories to tell you tonight, but Clava cairns. Let's step out of the vehicle and get this done. Whoa, this time of night you got to be extra careful. And again, you can hear absolutely nothing apart from us getting out here. There's the bolt. There we go. We're in. And directly ahead of us, I'm seeing white birds flying over graves, which is quite an odd thing. And there are the standing stones now. Now we're hitting my faith, the pagans, because we're going back 2,000 years before the birth of Christ. These things were built. Standing stones quite often for ceremony, and yet I think if you had your astronomical hat on, you would find that each standing stone was a precise distance apart and usually synonymous with matching up with stars or other planets. They're around most of the mounds. Absolutely incredible. We'll try and come back tomorrow to get some pictures during the day of these, because this time of night the greyness of them just seems to climb out of the ground. Now we should be able to get into some of these tunnels, and I warn you that there's a wagon just going by, like a big farm truck behind us. Those of you who are maybe frightened of ghosts or frightened of spirits will not be pleased by the idea that there are tunnels. Hopefully we'll be able to climb about in some of these. Let's have a look. The Clava cairns. I think we're coming to the main doorway here. Yes, we are. And this one hasn't got a roof on it, which is all right. So you can actually make your way down. You can imagine it with a roof on, and directly under our feet here, cairns, you will find that one or two things happened in a place like this. Either they dug a pit in the centre where they would rest the remains, or the grave would be here. Alternatively, on some of these, you would have quite a high cairn. I think a lot of the stones being stolen from these to help build farmhouses and cottages and similar things in the past. But when they had a complete cover, a complete shroud over it, you will see that they had the tunnel coming in. That would have had a roof on it, as would this, and there would be a tiny little gap, usually pointing at a star. So it could be directly above us, or it would be where the sun perhaps travels across, so that at a particular time of day the sun would shine down that tiny little hole to illuminate the inside of the cairn, as if to pay tribute to the people who died, who were placed in here. Sometimes they were burnt. I mean, even back then, 2,000 years BC, they were burnt and placed in pots, and the pot would usually be placed in a little hole in literally a hole in the wall. Now, it actually looks like it could have been there, because that looks like it's been filled up. I mean, a lot of these would have been robbed. They wouldn't have had grave goods or things that, like the Vikings. Some people have been buried with longboats. Certainly, Romans and stuff buried with spears and chariots and their favourite horses. At times, like, going throughout history. But if you go back before that, they weren't particularly buried with anything that they believed would help them in the next life. They knew their spirit was moving on. They weren't particularly convinced that they'd be able to take all of their possessions. The standing stones are absolutely beautiful. And as I say, they're positioned most likely to be matching with the stars. And they're all along. Every burial mound has standing stones around them. Kenny seems to have found a little something. What is it you've got there, Ken? Read it out.
It actually gives you a whole description of what it is. It's the passage grave,
right?
Apparently, so that obviously it is burial chambers underneath these stones.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Covered by lintels, they're so low you'd have to crawl along it. That's what I was saying, that there was like a lid on it. Yeah. But I think a lot of it's been robbed because you know how the Roman wall, Hadrian's wall and the Antonine wall in Scotland and the north of England was robbed by farmers, because why carve stone and carry it all that distance when there's a big burial mound loaded full of stones? So I'm going to just have a look at this next burial mound over here. Some of the standing stones are much, much bigger. Usually the bigger the standing stones, the more important the people that were buried there. But I'm noticing, cutting through the grass beneath our feet, there's smaller stones that would either have been... Because if you look at it, there's another circle here. Do you see it? Circle round there as well. So I think you have to realise that an awful lot of these have been robbed. And if you look down there, there's like a depression. Now, I'm fairly sure that in its time, there will have been something down here too. Looks like it doesn't, maybe it's even here. Depressions in the earth usually means people have been digging for something, and there's the remnants of burial mound kind of bursting through grass and moss beneath our feet. So, when we talk about being a little bit frightened of ghosts and spirits, I would have thought that a place like this, where people have robbed your grave, where people have desecrated it by scattering it in all directions or taking a lid off it, like they have, talk about a good reason to be cursed. And look at this, the standing stones here obviously are of very, very decent size. I think to move something like this would take 20 or 30 men to carry that, because that standing stone that's directly ahead of us that has a shape to it, it's obviously been carved, but secondly, it's huge, which means that whoever went into this grave was probably someone who was quite a man. But again, you would not be able to walk in as we've been able to do. You would have to crawl along a small tunnel, and as I say, the lid on the top lit up at a certain time of day when the sun would get to a particular place in the sky, and they just keep going. There's more directly ahead, but I'm more fascinated by what's not here anymore. It's an amazing place. Clava Cairns. We're going to head back into the car. I've got another curse to tell you about, and it's a maritime one from a guy who died thousands of miles away. Why would this part of the world be the place that Blackbeard, the pirate, would curse? You're going to find that out next. But we're getting closer every second to facing the beastie.
Well, I didn't see it at first. Someone else saw it, so it sort of drew my attention and said, "Oh, look, there's the monster."
It was about midday, and we were in the middle of the loch in the bay, and we looked out down the loch, and about 500, 600 yards away, we saw this shape. It was a hump moving in the water, and at first we just treated it as a joke, and, well, somebody said it was a monster, but we didn't take it seriously for the first couple of seconds, and then people began to look at it more closely. Looking at the loch against the water, it was just a black form going across, and it was moving very fast across the loch towards the other side, and it turned back just when we got to the other side and started to go back again, and it submerged. There was a hell of a wake of it.
You can sort of see the bow waves coming off the front, only pretty big waves, and the wash is spread from one side of the loch to the other side.
All I can say really apart from that is the speed impressed me very much.
It really was moving.
It would have had to have been a speedboat if it was anything to go as fast as it.
You could see a Cali cruiser in the distance. It was really leaving behind.
The fact that the people in the Cali cruiser had seen it as well confirmed it, really, in my mind. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been so confident about it.
Alan Robson, Beyond the Monster.
Now, a bit earlier I was teasing you about Blackbeard. Well, how unlikely does it sound that Loch Ness could possibly be cursed by the world's most infamous pirate? Well, in 2006, a team of marine archaeologists uncovered the remnants of the sloop that Blackbeard was on when he died. It's called the Queen Anne's Revenge, and it was located in relatively shallow water off the coast of North Carolina in the United States of America. Now, the team there found cannons, bells, lead shot of all sizes. They found bags of gold dust, pewter crockery, and medical devices like urethral syringes to treat syphilis with mercury. You've had that, Kenny?
Thanks.
It's a sore point. This was Edward Teach's final ship, Blackbeard, the most feared pirate of all time. And they found writings on board that confirmed that he would light red-hot tapers into his hair, going into battle with his head literally on fire. Blackbeard was married at least 14 times, and he began his piratical exploits indirectly, legally, as a privateer for England. Yet the end of him came when troops loaded on board a trio of ships to track him, then exterminate him. Blackbeard had told everybody that he'd retired, but the governor of Virginia didn't believe him, so in an attempt to make a name for himself, the governor decided he would be the man who defeated and killed Blackbeard. Troops started gathering. A Captain Maynard found himself in pitched battle with Blackbeard. Teach slashed his fingers, yet bravely the Englishman kept fighting, drawing a pistol and shooting the pirate in the chest. Then stepped forward a Highlander. Some claimed that his name was Buchan, who stood in front of his wounded captain, and during the sword fight he slashed Blackbeard's throat. The pirate looked at him and said, "Well done, lad." Some say that they actually chatted throughout the fight, flattering each other or trying to intimidate. Teach said, "If I kill you today, you'll be going straight to hell with all of your skipper's backstabbing brigade." In return, the Highlander said, "Nay, hell is waiting for ye." Then a second time, the Highlander slashed the pirate's throat, this time making it spurt with blood. Maynard wrote in his report, "The huge pirate smiled at this brave young lad and seemed truly proud of his courage. Then said, 'Well, matey, it's time for me to go. You've bettered me, and yet both you and the land you're from will be cursed for all time. For this one time, your foe is innocent, and therefore your final blow shall be heinous.'" Blackbeard, Edward Teach, then began laughing and lowered his guard. At that, the young Scot hacked at his throat, taking off his head as it lay flat on his shoulder, held on by a strip of flesh. He finished severing it and threw Blackbeard's body into the sea, placing his head on a spike for all to see. It was said that the curse given at the moment of his death holds a great deal of power, and young Buchan returned to his home alongside this Loch Ness. Within that year, his sweetheart died of pneumonia. Both his parents, too. His best friend drowned in the loch. Buchan walked to a tree 8 paces from his small cottage and hanged himself in an attempt to end the curse and to join Edward Teach in hell. The curse still stands, and no one knows who, where, or when it'll strike next. I hope it's not me.
The Grant family of Invermorston.
I saw the Loch Ness monster last October. I was upstairs. It was a moonlight night, and it was one of those nights when you got every colour, orange, red, yellow, all the colours that you possibly could get. And I suddenly saw this black thing in the middle of the water out there, and it was just a big black mound, actually, and it suddenly sort of turned and went just straight over and into the water again. By the time I shouted for my husband, it's gone, of course. But it was rather, to my mind, in shape, rather like a seal, that sort of big, shiny black back to it. Well, I couldn't really tell you the size because, I'm a good way away from it here, but it was in the upstairs bedroom window and I saw it. And there's lights on the water. It was just fantastic. And you just saw it just lying on the water, just turned, as I've said to many people, as a cat sitting on your knee. When it's tired of sitting there, you know, it twists and away over, and it just somersaulted back into the water like that. But it was must have been terrific size, because to see it from here to there, you got the idea of it from that side. So to me, it was an enormous seal. It's part of us, the monster. It's just like one in the family, actually. I mean, we know it's there because it belongs to the loch and belongs to us in the glen. It's been there for years and years and years. I mean, my husband's grandfather used to call it a beastie. So, I mean, it's not new. It's only just new now because, I mean, there's been this fuss made about it. But it was exactly as I imagined it was going to be. I mean, it wasn't anything different. I've stood there many, many nights waiting for it to happen, but when it did actually happen, I mean, I wasn't worried, I wasn't frightened or anything. I knew it was just our Nessie.
Still pounding round the lake. We always have so much to do when we have trips like this. And we've got to be in a certain place at a certain time to make sure we get everything in for you guys. And yet, when people talk about spotting the Loch Ness Monster, so many stories, and the people who are telling those stories are genuine and sincere people. You know, they're not crazies, they're not half drunk, they're reliable witnesses. Loch Ness has enough myths and legends attached to it, yet there's one about a castle on the loch side. There's a few to choose from, and yet this particular castle's never been named. Goes back to the early 1800s when a young lad from a poor family fell in love with the daughter of the laird. The relationship never set to work, the laird setting his dogs on the boy and throwing his family out of their tied cottage. The young man was in love, though, and ignoring his parents' pleadings, was determined to steal her away. Now, the laird knew this and declared that he would put a price on the man's head. Well, she kept meeting him in secret in this ruined castle, and it became a place where they could love one another and be free of prying eyes. The secret rendezvous was a joyous one. She truly loved him, and he really loved her. They were kindred spirits, neither of them understanding how anybody could be against such a wondrous and true love. They talked together, held each other, made love. The castle may be a ruin, yet to them it was more special than any gold-laden palace. The idyll was soon shattered after the suspicious father had her followed, and his man saw everything. The following day, the laird kept his daughter captive and sent 2 of his men to wait for him at the castle. They captured him, and he begged them for mercy, saying that they might as well cut out his heart rather than stop him seeing his beloved girl. So they did that. They cut out his heart. They returned to the laird with a man's heart in a blood-sodden rag to claim their bounty. His daughter exploded into a rage and ran from the house, racing to the castle to find nothing other than a pool of blood. So much that she knew that her dear, loving man was certainly dead. When his daughter didn't return home, the laird sent out search parties, but she was never found. A letter was left in the castle saying, "You did this, but you will never stop us being together." Some say that she hanged herself from the roof of the crumbling building, being cut down by her friends and buried away from her father. Yet others say that she found the pit where her man was hurled, and she climbed into it, pulling stones and earth down on top of herself, slicing open her veins and bleeding to death, whilst holding on to her one and only true love. And they say that if you share a kiss in the castle, you feel a rush of passion from the spirits of the 2 lovers trapped forever in their own eternal love nest. But there's so many stories linked with this of people seeing. In 1882, Mac and Marie Dugdale picnicking next to the castle and saw 2 young people running around, yet they appeared to be in old-fashioned clothing. They wrote, "They both seemed so happy, laughing and giggling. Then they settled down by the loch and began to make love. I was shocked, and I told my husband to announce our presence and demand they show rather more decorum. He stood up and walked over, and we both saw them disappear right in front of us. The Dugdales had no idea about the two lovers. They'd never heard the legend. In 1972, a man called Aitken was alone in the castle when he felt someone kiss his cheek. I'm not imagining it. My cheek was even moist from it. I suddenly felt like I wanted to cry, and to be honest, I did a little. I felt so sad. I'd lost my wife 5 months earlier, but was not even thinking of her when this happened. It was as if someone wanted to sympathise, and it was the first kiss I'd had since she passed. In July 75, a holidaymaker actually had a chat with two young people, they said in fancy dress, with very broad Scottish accents, sitting near the loch near an old castle. His name was Oliver Taylor from Manchester, on holiday with his old parents. He'd gone out for a walk and bumped into a couple and spoke how beautiful the loch had looked. The couple smiled and cuddled each other. The girl walked up to him and stroked his arm, reaching over to kiss his cheek. And at that, the pair of them turned towards the castle and walked through the wall. Taylor told the evening newspaper, I hadn't been drinking. They just melted through the wall. I could still feel the kiss on my cheek. Her lips and hand had felt as solid as you or I. Never believed in ghosts, so if they were real people, where the F were they? In 2003, a group of cyclists stopped near Loch Ness after pedalling from Inverness. All 27 of them saw two ghosts gliding over the waters of the loch, a man and woman in a long grey dress. Elizabeth Burgess said, at first I thought it was the necks of two monsters. We're raised with these stories. But we could make out it was actually the shape of two people. You could clearly see arms and legs. They were holding hands, and it looked really sweet. As we looked closer, they were about a foot above the water. Then there was a water splash, and they were gone. We all saw it. Most of us hadn't seen a ghost before. Some refused to believe it. But we all know what we saw. Because tonight, I'm aiming to go face to face with the Loch Ness Monster. Richard's car has just pulled in to the boatyard. The loch is directly ahead of us. I can see a white vessel, and we are pulling up right now. There's a certain suit waiting for me, and to be honest, we're going to have to come back tomorrow to try and get pictures of boats and that and standing stones, because quite simply everything following that cemetery has screwed up. We've lost a lot of stuff. What stuff's broken down? I know your camera's gone, Kenny. You also had a broadcasting device. I gather that's knackered as well.
Yeah, mini Marantz that I had there just as a backup. I was recording and it's gone. It's totally gone. That's not working. Camera isn't working at all, so we're relying on one camera to hope that doesn't go down as well. Otherwise, we are really stuck.
Yeah, because we had everything kind of planned. Electrical devices following Boleskine Cemetery. We've had some of the broadcasting kit that we've had look in very, very dangerous condition during commercial breaks or in times when we've been playing eyewitness accounts back from the studio in Newcastle upon Tyne. We've been changing batteries by the score because the batteries have just been going flat in a matter of seconds. It's hard to explain why such a thing would happen, Ken. Just these places just suck the life out of things.
Always do. I mean, every time we do something like this, it seems to just take the energy out of whatever equipment that we've got. It's as if the dead are taking our energy away from us to recharge themselves.
And on that thought, there's a boat. I'm going into the loch tonight. It's late, it's dark. I've got to get some kit on. Join me in my kit room.
Alan Robson, Beyond the Monster.
You with Alan Robson. Again, is actually helping me rig with this very, very peculiar suit that I have to wear for what we're doing next. You'll find out about that soon. But I just thought, we've been here now for about 3.5, 4 days. This is our final day and our final challenge to come. What is the monster? Because I think what we have to realise is, across this week, we have been baiting traps along the riverbank. You know, you never know your luck. What have we caught? We've caught a few fish. We've caught a few eels. We've caught quite a large catfish. However, what is the monster? What's big enough for all of these people who've taken photographs, who've filmed the loch? So much evidence here. It's hard to believe when you just look at half a dozen YouTube clips. There's millions of YouTube clips, far too many. And yes, there have been a few people on the loch winding folk up with remote control this and remote control that. But go back long before that, when people just had the old cine cameras. Hundreds of them. Hundreds show the monster. We've got people like professional police officers, members of the military, bumping into the monster in his rowing boat right in the centre of the loch. There's a lot of proof here. Sharks, I think, the way that sharks behave, and you'll be aware yourself that a lot of people would see the fin on the water, the way they feed and the way they round up shoals of fish, those kind of things would easily be seen, I reckon, certainly by the kind of cameras that have trawled this loch left, right and centre. But on saying that, there have been sharks in lochs. Think outside the box, though. What other kind of creatures, realistically, might there be here?
Well, I don't know about this one 100%, but what about crocodiles? I mean, I know it's been heard of before.
Yeah, I mean, there was a panic in the northeast of England once when somebody released one of those little baby crocodiles into a pond in I think it was Washington. Crocodiles maybe, but once again, the thing about crocodiles that would easily match that kind of flat trawling of the surface of the water, that would fit. The long neck sticking out, that is an ounce of a problem, but certainly the vast majority of the things captured right here on Loch Ness have been flat to the water, so that would fit. But again, crocodiles have to breathe outside of the water, so they would have to come up fairly regularly, therefore surely somebody would spot them. And also late at night, especially this time of night, when we are, they'd be there on the surface of the water getting ready to feed. And also, where's all of these Nessie's humps?
Yeah.
There's not a hint of a Nessie, unless it's a crocodile with a humpy back. Who knows? I mean, anything is possible. They talked recently about sturgeon. Now, I don't know whether you're aware, but sturgeon are massive fish. They're the fish that give you caviar. So I think if they were up here, knowing Scottish people the way that I do, they'd be farming those little beggars. But they can grow up to like 10, 12, 15, 16 feet. That's a big fish, but it's a fish. So therefore, nothing particularly out of the water. What else then?
Well, what about the monster itself, you know, a prehistoric dinosaur?
And when I saw the footage that Sir Peter Scott is not one of these kind of guys that's ever messed around. He doesn't bull you, he doesn't blind you with science, and he came to Loch Ness, and I think got nearer to what's in here than anybody else. He's thought for years that it could be a creature called a plesiosaur. If you have a look at these, it's the standard long-necked dinosaur, head out the water, but instead of having 4 feet, it's 4 enormous flippers, because they were amazing in the water. The way you see seals playing underwater, they were fast, they were quick, they would show themselves and then they'd be gone, and yet if they wanted to, they could just muck about and kind of glide across the surface. Plesiosaur, outside chance. The thing about that was Peter Scott took some footage. He got a photograph of a flipper. That is the flipper of a plesiosaur. No question about it. That is a plesiosaur's flipper. However, the rest of the creature, there was a couple of other shots that looked magnificent in the darkness, but as you know, a picture taken in the black can quite often be misconstrued to be 1,000 things. So is there a prehistoric creature in there? If there is, there has to be a dozen of them, because they have to be a breeding colony. There have to be enough of them to continue. The interesting thing about a plesiosaur is, though, that they only ever inhabited areas where there was enough food to sustain them. So in the same way that maybe a terrapin in a fish tank, if it's a foot tank, will never grow bigger than 4 inches, because it knows that it's only got a foot to work in. So its body tells it you're not growing any bigger than 4 inches. I had one of these critters, so I know all about it. I put it in a 3-foot tank. Within a year, it was a foot long. Now, if you move that across, and yes, we understand it's a slightly different creature, and the scale is certainly massively more. If you have a creature that will not outbreed an area that it fishes, then it could sustain a small family of plesiosaurs right here. And if you use the terrapin analogy, if a plesiosaur will grow to a certain size, depending on its habitat, Loch Ness is massive. This could be a huge, huge creature. But there's other things as well. What else have you thought of?
Well, what about the obvious one, eels?
Eels, we know there are eels here. Last time we visited Loch Ness, and it was a long time ago, we saw eels up to kind of 14, 15, 16 foot long, with a body on them like a human being. You know, it's like 20, 30-inch waist on this thing. Now, to see one of them going across the water, and because of the way they swim, the elongations could look like the humps of the Loch Ness Monster. Could an eel stick its head out of the water so far that it would look like it had a long neck? Don't know. That's probably the downside of it. We've caught a few eels this week, some long ones too, 10-foot eel. Was that Nessie? 10 foot? I think it would be his granddad. If Nessie is an eel, there could be so many of them that it's absolutely massive. And, of course, the thing about certain eels, conger eels particularly, and they're commonplace all over the waters here of Scotland, if they attack you, they can make a right mess.
So since we've started looking at this catfish idea, now this is the one that you're more scared of.
It's the one that I lean towards, if I'm honest. Last time I was here, I was almost certain it had to be an eel, because we'd seen the eels here are monsters. They're monster eels, and there's not just one or two, there's hundreds, and you just need 10 to swim across the surface of the lake with the amount of cameras that's here for everybody to go, wow, we've just seen Nessie. But it's the catfish thing. I don't know how many of you saw a documentary on television recently about the river Ganges in India. Now, it's the sacred river of the Hindu. And all of a sudden, along this stretch of about 3.5-4 miles of river, they realised that people were going missing. They didn't know why. Fully dressed, fully clad, fully healthy people were in the water washing clothes, and they just get grabbed by something and taken away. And kind of like what we're doing. Is it sharks? Is it crocodiles? And some Hindus, is it an evil god spirit that's returned to the river? A lot of questions were asked. They sent skin divers down to have a look, and they discovered catfish up to 40 feet long. Now, 40 feet's big catfish. In rivers in Britain, people regularly catch 18 to 20 feet catfish. So these are big guys, and they're normal to have about. Certainly catfish in Loch Ness, no question. Are they 40 foot long? The reason they got to be 40 foot long in the Ganges was that just up the river is where they hold all of the funeral rituals, where they burn members of their family and then they lower the bodies into the Ganges. They give the body back to where it was created from, because we all came from the water initially, irrespective of what your religious books might say. To give it back to the water. And when they were putting all these bodies in the water, the catfish were saying, thank you, here's dinner, tea and supper. They grew massive sizes and acquired a taste for human flesh. So, a big catfish, and for those of you that keep catfish, and I know a lot of you are like aquarium types, for those of you that keep it, you will know that if you've got a really big catfish and a couple of small fish in the tank, the small fish will disappear, because a catfish will eat anything it can get in its mouth. Anything. Now, if you're a 40-foot catfish, your mouth will be wide enough to eat the largest woman or largest man you know. And that's a fact. And that's what makes this next part of our adventure here to Loch Ness. And we're so thrilled that the tourist board brought us up here, because we're going to try something tonight that's not been done, and it's going to be interesting.
Alan Robson, Beyond the Monster.
Hi there, it's Richard here. We put months of work into this, you know, lots and lots and lots of things to do here. And, you know, Kenny, I know you've got reservations about this, you know.
Well, I really have. Some of the things Alan's done, like being buried, you know, underground. We've done the horrible Bone Cathedral Halloween at midnight. He's been abroad with dogs chasing him and all kinds of stuff, but this is probably the worst thing ever. I'm really worried about this one for several reasons, but essentially, if you're going to go into water late at night in the dark, where there could be animals, whatever it is that's living under Loch Ness, it's very worrying. And the fact is, underwater, I mean, you can imagine underwater, it's going to be freezing cold. People can die when they're like, you know, in that amount of water and in that sort of temperatures. Freezing cold, dark, and I'm just really worried about the whole thing. I mean, don't forget as well, this is the biggest one. Alan can't swim.
Honestly?
No, he can't swim. Never ever learnt. Doesn't know how to. So why he's going in the water, I have no idea.
We're waiting for Alan now, and a couple of guys from the dive centre are just there getting him dressed. So here we are, waiting. We'll see what happens.
Step for man. One great step for mankind. Have you seen the plate? This is ridiculous. Hang on. I'm going to walk actually quite slow. At the present moment, I'm wearing something that would not look out of place in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And that was kind of like 60s or 70s. Kirk Douglas, stylish hoopy t-shirt. Not me. I'm in this brown waterproof thing, and I've got this weird kind of, I don't know whether you can hear this, but there's this kind of like metal clasps all over the place. It's not making any noise, but it's big and it's gawky, and a helmet goes on top of here, and you've organised this helmet and you've rigged it up with a microphone for me, so once I get underwater then I can talk to you. But when the helmet's physically on, which I'm not going to put it on the absolute last moment, I've never been claustrophobic, but then again I've never been underwater in something like this. The shoes have got things where you can put metal plates in, and they've been weighted for somebody of my weight to hang, not just like not to be dragged behind the boat, so that you actually go down, the boat will be static, and I should hang. Lots of lads for me, the health and safety and stuff, because we obviously have to do this right and take it, and we've already trod on one or two of those regulations. It has to be said. But I'm going to be hanging apparently 10 feet below the water. Do you not think this looks kind of sexy?
I love the boots.
Thanks for the boots are pretty good.
What you put the helmet on?
Thanks very much. Now what we're going to do, I know it's going to be a dance getting me on the boat, and then we're heading out a ways. So between now and then, there's not really a whole lot happening other than giving us an opportunity for you to hear some of the people, genuine people, not crazies, who've actually seen the monster. We've been sharing a few of these with you tonight, but we've got to get to the bit of the loch that goes down 815 feet, which is 4 times deeper than most of the oceans of the world. So that's the bit we're hanging over, because let's face it, if there is anything down there, and we've talked a little bit about what it could be, if there's anything out there, do you know what really worries me more than, first of all, I am scared pooless that something will snap and I'm just going to go straight down. That kind of worries me, because I'm going to be held on by, we know there's like cord, just cord. I want stainless steel holding me on. Anyway, cord, and there's a couple of air pipes, and there's also the wire for the microphone. So I know there's a few things holding on to me, and all of them have been tested above my body weight. Great. So shouldn't be, but it was just that thing that happened when you put the bait in and you said 11-inch bite mark, and I looked at various parts of everything. 11-inch bite mark, my legs off 11-inch bite mark, my arms off 11-inch bite mark, and the other thing is 11-inch bite into the suit fills with water. And I know that you guys have said, and again we kind of had a little briefing
with the lads. I've just got to tug the rope 3 times and I can be in the boat in minutes. I'm not great at holding my breath. If my suit punctures and fills with water, you're going to have to get me in there like spit. Otherwise I won't be. In fact, I'll be dead. But I won't be. I'll be a bloody unpleasant ghost. So you're being warned. Anyway, here's another couple of people who've witnessed the monster, by which time hopefully I'll be on the boat. We'll be heading out to the deep bit. That's why we had to drive here, to get as close to it as we possibly can. Tonight, we're doing something no one's done.
This is Frank Searle, died aged 83 in 2005. He was the most famous British photographer on Loch Ness. He took that famous photograph.
I'm a Londoner originally. I was a professional soldier for 18 and a half years, but I've now been up on Loch Ness for just over 7 years. I came up here just to satisfy myself about the Loch Ness scene. The usual sighting is the back of the animal, and I think people usually describe it as something like an upturned boat, 14 or 15 feet in length, 3 feet out the water, dark grey to black in colour, usually a big swirl of water, and perhaps just there 7 or 8 seconds. My 18 years in the Paras did me much more good than any knowledge of photography, because I'm a firearms expert. I walk around with this, just as when I was a paratrooper, I walked around with a Tommy gun, and anything moves, I go like that. Yeah. I can photograph these jet planes that fly down the loch and absolutely freeze them stone cold at 1,000ths of a second. I think, actually, we might describe one sighting which indicates how lucky one can be to get a sighting, that it is pure luck. There's nothing else you can work on. In 1972, I had an Australian girl come along on holiday with a pack on her back and got really hooked on this scene and asked if she could stick around for a while on her holiday. She'd only been in Scotland 24 hours. I hadn't had a sighting for 10 months. The first time she came out in the boat with me, we got the best sighting that had ever been photographed on Loch Ness. And that girl had actually been out in the boat with me for 4 hours and 10 minutes. I think it was quite a spectacular sighting. Also, it proves just how lucky one can be. We know very little about these creatures. I think it would be quite honest to say that all we know, there's something in Loch Ness which is far larger than anything that you would expect to find in a British freshwater lake. Something like 1,400 years of written records about these things. We come up with the fact that there's something out there which is perhaps 30 feet in length, and an accumulation of all these eyewitness reports over 1,400 years, plus my own experiences, my own photographs, indicate that these creatures resemble the prehistoric plesiosaur. It's accepted that these animals, whatever they are, were coming to and from the sea, using this as a feeding or breeding ground, as big sea creatures use the Norwegian fjords, and some got trapped when Loch Ness was cut off from the North Sea by a local volcanic action. And to tie in with that, there's been similar sightings in the North Sea and the North Atlantic, not only hundreds of years ago, but since World War II as well. And marine biologists are agreeing on 14 as being the minimum number they think would be needed to keep the species going. They're working on the assumption that these things breed the same as things they know about. They could be wrong, but you've got to accept someone's figures. In 1973, we had an author named Mr. F.W. Holliday, who once wrote a book saying that these creatures were solid animate objects, and then wrote another book saying that they were not, that they were phantom spirits. He brought a retired priest up, and they went out in a small boat, sprinkled holy water on the loch, and exorcised these phantom spirits that were swimming about in the loch. Strangely, 2 months after the exorcism, I actually photographed one of the animals, and I've taken about 4 photographs since then. I don't really see how one can take photographs of a phantom spirit. And in fact, the last picture I took on the loch this year, February 26, 1976, with 3 visitors standing talking to me, has been blown up 20 times onto a video screen by Japanese television, and it's possible to see the eye, the mouth, the gills, the muscles in the neck of this creature, which I don't think you would see in one of Mr. Holliday's phantom spirits. I'm an ex-professional soldier. I've travelled all over the world. I've seen some strange things. I've done some strange things. I've seen the animals that live in Loch Ness. I've photographed them, and I know that what I have seen is a solid animate object. Nothing supernatural or any kind about it.
Catherine Robertson, district nurse.
And I walked back a bit and took her picture, and as I handed back the camera, I noticed this huge animal. It just was swimming right along the shore, and it was about 42 to 43 feet long. It had a huge bulky body and 2 hams, and the body was sort of heaving out and in, and there was sort of a noise. This noise came from it, and the body was grey, like an elephant skin, sort of, and it had a long, thin neck. It was about 16 to 18 feet out of the water, and the head was like a shape of a horse's head. It had no dome, and it was huge, the head, but compared to the body, it was small, and I couldn't keep my eyes off that head. It was absolutely terrific. It looked as if it looked towards us, but I'm sure it didn't. But the whole surrounding of the head was white, and in the middle of it was a darker spot, But it couldn't be the eye, the darker spot, because it must have been huge, enormous, if it had been the eye, But it was all white around, and along the neck in the front, it was white, And mind you, it swam very, very slowly, quite along the shore there, and it's supposed to be very shallow there, And then it went right opposite to Borlum there, Borlum Farm. And then it contracted. The hams became quite sort of high up, and it stood there static. And, having lived here, well, at that time it was, 15 years. I'm living here now 20 years, and you hear sort of sightings, and they say it's with a terrific speed it goes, but it didn't. But I was still sort of wanting to watch for the wash, to come near the shore. And I told Ruth, my friend, I said, wait until the wash, it's bound to come. And here I saw quite a grey wave coming on. I say, look, that's this big wave coming on now. She says, no, look, it's another one. And this was the same. It was just 1/4 of the other one. It was much, much smaller. It had only 1 hump. It actually looked like a giant tortoise, and with the same long neck and this squarish sort of head, And it was very boisterous. This one took a short route. It never swam along the bay there, And we watched it, and it was so quick in its movements. The skin on top of the whole body, it was loose, and it moved like that in a round sort of rocking way, And that definitely was quite a distinctive sound it made, and it like a horse, when it's feeding, and it made this, and you could hear the splatter of water, on the surface. And then as this wee one caught up with the other one, they just subsided, and I suppose it must have been about 12 to 13 minutes that we watched it, the whole procedure, That morning it was rather misty, and then it became very, very hot, just a day like today, And the visibility was clear, and the loch was absolutely calm. There was not a ripple on it. I couldn't sort of say quite exactly how far. I should think about 250 yards. Actually, our lady came and parked her car beside us. I went to her and introduced myself. I said, I am Mrs. Robertson. That there, I said, is the Loch Ness monster. And she looked down upon me as if I was mad, And then she had a binocular, she watched it, but she saw sort of only the tail end of the second one, I wasn't afraid. Also, I was, what you call it, I was awe-struck. I was eerie. It was eerie, really, to see a big thing like that. And I had goose pimples on my body. I would say it was a very shy animal and sort of a little bit stupid too, you know, but in a way proud as well. This was a living thing. These were two animals, definitely. There is no two doubt about it in my mind. No wonder it's called monster, you know. I never had an imagination. It was so huge. And mind you, later on, I meet a lot of old people, and some of the old people still speak the Gaelic, you know, here. And there was a Smitty that were very old people, and they spoke the Gaelic between themselves. And I never let on about the noise, because, you know, they probably calculate you are not really right in your head, you know. And this old lady once asked me, she said, Nash, have you seen the monster? She must have heard something. I said, yes. And then she spoke to her brother in Gaelic and something. And Yahushk, I heard, and I knew that Yahushk in Gaelic is a horse, a water horse or something. And they say, now, Jeannie, I said, do translate what you have saying to Willie now, you know. And she said, well, no, I told her that you saw the snorting water horse. And I was taken quite aback. I said, the snorting water horse. Now you tell me. I said, yes. She said, you see, that is a nickname we give it. We locals gave to the horse. She says, you know, as we were small, and if you did something naughty, my parents would say, now snorting water horse will get you, you know.
Estimates of sightings of the creature, or creatures, in Loch Ness range from 4 to 12,000, depending on whose figures you decide to accept. In the past 40 years, sightings have increased. This could simply be a result of publicity from the media, or the Scots themselves speaking more freely about the subject, as once it was forbidden to speak of it, if you had seen it. A number of countries have financial and scientific reasons for trying to find the monster. These include the United States of America, Japan, and Western Germany. They are deploying a formidable array of hardware worth many millions of pounds, ranging from jet planes and helicopters to midget submarines, all using highly sophisticated filming and sonar equipment, some of which was developed by Marconi Marine, who designed the advanced electronics necessary for Europe's very latest fighter aircraft. A testament to the determination of some interests in the tracking down of Nessie is a reported offer of £250,000 for any conclusive photograph.
Ian Dunn and Billy Kennedy, they fished the loch twice a week.
This was about 8 o'clock at night on a Monday night. We were out in the loch about 10 to 9. Weather conditions were very calm. It was. We did the boat. We were going up alongside a Brechin pier, going up towards Drummond Rocket. We're about quarter a mile out, about quarter mile up from the pier, when I looked back in the wake of the boat to see about 200 yards back a hump coming out of the water. So then I just nudged my mate. We turned the boat, started on our way back, and just to make sure nothing would happen, we put on the life jackets because we didn't know what it was. So as we approached it, it started moving out, whatever it was, into the loch. So it was just slightly over quarter mile in. It stopped, and we were roughly about 60 yards from whatever it was, the moving object. And then a lot of other ones got up, about 4 other humps got up. Then we went closer just to see what it was, it was frightening, because we kept turning the boat back towards the pier, facing towards the pier in case anything happened. But then we were getting too far away from them again, and we just turned the boat back into them again. The one that came out the most was about 3 foot out of the water, about 12 foot long, sort of pyramid shaped, you know, and the rest were roughly about 2 foot out of the water. But it was very frightening, you know. At one point, we seen this, what we thought was one monster with 3 humps, coming towards the boat. And we were just going to turn the boat, and then it split up, the 2 humps behind split up. And it was obviously 3 different objects, whatever they were. It was like a mother and 2 of the family following sort of thing. Then they just split up. They were just going round, sort of moving about, going under the water, coming back up. But at one point, without exaggerating, there were 5 different objects just moving about. Mm-hmm. You know, like a school of wheels, you know, just moving about. We had nothing aboard. We had no camera aboard. It was very quiet at that time. It was about 9:15. And even looking up towards the road, we couldn't see anyone about. The frightening part was that we didn't know how long they were, how heavy they were, how big they were, and we were frightened it would lift up the boat. You know, that was the main fear. Because at one point, when we decided to go back into the pier, because it started to rain then and the water started churning up a bit, we reckoned we better get back. We sort of pushed our luck so far. One followed us in. It was about 15 yards from the boat. And as we were going faster, it started to get faster until actually we put the boat into, and it's a very fast boat, we put it to just give it full throttle and went straight back at the pier. You've got to see it to believe it.
Alan Robson, live from Scotland.
Now, I absolutely can't believe this. I'm in this suit. I'm going into the loch where the boat is rocking. It's pitch black. All we can see at the present moment are the lights from the occasional house, and maybe sometimes when a car moves along. This suit looks amazing. I'm not going to put the helmet on yet, but you can swim. Why don't you do this, Kenny?
Because I'm not stupid. I've got to write the health and safety report on this, so therefore I've got to do that part of this. I would not go in that water at this time of night in that pitch black. It's too dangerous.
But I mean, the spotlights from the side of the boat light up a fair bit of ground, a fair bit of area underneath the boat. But it means rocking a bit.
Exactly. And while the boat's rocking, it's still moving a little bit away from where you're going to be. And
I'm going to be attached to the boat. I'm going to be fine.
It's still dangerous, Alan. You know that.
I know, but we've had a look at this. I can't swim, so they've had to put me in this big suit with a helmet on so they can mic me up so that I can talk to me. So I'm going to do that. Richard, have you got the bolts and everything that you need?
I've got all the bits and pieces. Yeah, I've got the hand pump for the compressor as well.
Now, Kenny, that's what I want you to do. Just keep the oxygen going as much as we can. They say that you cannot pump too much, if you pardon the expression. Yeah. So I'm going to do that. Join me next when it takes about a little bit of time to get this hat on. Then it's over to these guys.
This is Gaynor here, and Alan's in the suit, all kitted up, looking a treat, Mr. Say. He's got the helmet on, and Kenny, what do you think? Should we get him down now?
I'm ready to let him go down there, but I am a bit worried about this one because it is something that we've never done before, and it's quite dangerous under this water. But yep, you want to do it, so let's go for it. Yeah.
Richard, are you ready? Have you got the pump and everything sorted there?
I've got the pump going.
Is he mic'd up? Can you just check just to make sure we've got him?
Yep, hang on a minute, just a minute. Yep, wires in place, it all looks good. I've got the thumbs up.
Hi, Alan, can you just give us a knock to let us know you're all right to go?
Oh, right. Okay, ladies. I'm going down. It's a good job I'm not remotely claustrophobic. Or if I am, you're going to find out in a hurry. Now, I'm wearing the kind of outfit that kind of ancient skid divers used to wear years and years and years ago. I must admit, at first I thought, first time I say anything, because obviously it's kind of old-fashioned. They're replacing the air in this step by step as the night goes. I just hope that nobody up there stops or takes a break, because down here you can see so very little. Now, let me just explain my position. You heard me getting into the water before. We are approximately about 250, 300 yards from shore. We're near the deepest part of the loch, directly beneath me, and I'm moving my feet to the left and I'm moving my feet to the right. The microphone is inside here. There's two wires going up to the surface. One wire is the microphone lead that's been completely covered with plastic to keep it hopefully safe and working. Otherwise, this is going to be the shortest finale to a show you've ever heard. It's unpleasant in here. It's very hot. Your breath comes back to you. Sometimes it kind of distorts the glass in front of me, because I must say that I was worried, like condensation, so they said there'd be a little bit and that it would probably run into my suit. Lovely. What can I say at the present moment? Well, directly ahead of me there is the underside of the boat. If I just tilt my head up a little bit, directly under the boat there's 4 huge spotlights under the water, just under the water, kind of lighting up a whole square of Loch Ness and swimming through it. I mean, it's attracting stuff to it, there's no question about that. You see a few small fish going by. In the distance before, I don't know whether it was just my imagination or whatever, but I saw something that the nearest thing I could put it down to was like, you know when somebody throws like a party streamer and you see something snaking through the air, there was something directly ahead. It wasn't very big, it's possibly an eel or something kind of moving around, but to be honest, looking at the eels that we've already seen this week here at Loch Ness, I don't particularly want any of them coming anywhere near me. Now I've got mitts on, so pretty much all of my areas are covered for bites, should anything kind of come my way. You just feel like you're bait, and it is absolutely freezing. Inside the head, the helmet part of the suit, it is meltingly hot because your breath comes back to you, and your head's the hottest part of your body anyway. But my limbs, my feet, and I keep kind of sweeping them around, my feet are absolutely freezing. You know, to the degree that I literally can't freeze my toes. I can't freeze my toes. Blimey, can't even speak. I must admit, my very first moments after disappearing under the water, because the suit's slightly weighted, just weighted enough to keep me kind of down, and it's the soles of the boots apparently that they do that. They could slide plates into the bottom of the boots to give you a heavy, if you need it to be well down, or just a few light panels for me tonight, because I'm approximately 10, I'm guessing 12 feet below the boat, and because there's so much dark around me, you keep staring at the 4 lights under the boat, and every now and then the current will kind of draw me backwards and take me further away from the boat, and your heart starts really, really pounding and panicking, because if this rope connection, it's like rope, air tube and cable, if any of them came undone, I can't swim. I also can't breathe water. So this is when I'm kind of outside my comfort zone, big style with this. Now, the thing that's tricky is I can see stuff in the light. Now, even with the light beneath the boat, the amount you can see is fairly small. Every now and then a piece of seaweed or, well, presumably lochweed or whatever moves past, because there's a hell of a current down here. But the trick is, I'll just use my arms to kind of make me turn around. Oh God, I wish I hadn't done that. That's nasty. It's just black. I mean, it's just... Oh, what was that? Just freaking myself out a bit. It's not funny. This is not funny. It's a deep, dark blackness. The Loch Ness is massive, and if you look down, it's like just a bottomless pit. You can't see zip. You really can't. But on the same hand, you can't see anything coming out of the darkness. And good God, if I saw something now, what would I do? I've been told that to get out, all I've got to do is kind of tug on the cables, and if you tug the cables, then they could get you in about 3 or 4 minutes. And 3 or 4 minutes. I watched too many Jaws films. You haven't got 3 or 4 minutes, have you? My heart's thumping like crazy. I can feel my pulse in my wrists, and yet I can't feel my toes at all. If they had been chewed off by something, I really wouldn't know. Hang on, I can't keep staring at nothing. I'm just going to swing round. It takes about 3 or 4 kind of waves. The good thing is I'm not carrying anything, so you can use your hands to... Oh, there's the word again. I really find it hard to believe that anybody would want to... Well, why did I just say... Christopher Fisher's back at Metro Radio, otherwise you just know he would be down here with, like, a lump of salmon tied to his head. But the thing is, we've used bait all week, and now light is the bait. I know you might be thinking I'm the bait. I have no intention of getting eaten here. Do you know, I don't know how hard they're pumping up there on that deck, but there's not enough air getting. It's not enough. I'm gonna have to pull the cable. I'm gonna pull the cable. I'm going up. Oh!
Alan, you're going to have to shout up. I've got to have your mics off. I'm going to have to change the batteries.
Kenny,
yeah?
Please, for God's sake, you must keep... You got to keep pumping.
I'm pumping.
I know, but just don't stop, because I need twice as much as you're giving me.
Right.
It gets really kind of disconcerting otherwise. Can you get this, put the hat straight back on, Rich, because otherwise I'm going to bottle this.
Right, okay.
Alan Robson, live from Scotland.
Right. Think of any F word you want. Fiddly day. Alan Robson with you. We are live from approximately 15 to 20 feet below the surface of Loch. I say we. I am hanging like a pinata. I'm hanging like a worm on a hook, waiting for something to come and eat me up. You know, we've been talking earlier on about some of the things that might be in here. I really do discount stuff like sharks and seals. I thought maybe seals, but no, apparently not. Sturgeon they've got though, and they're massive, big fish. Apparently in here, Richard was telling me huge pike, and of course that whatever took that chunk out of the bait that we found earlier in the week, kind of like a 9-inch mouth on it. That's from side to side. That could take a decent lump out of a flashing blade. But will I be? Did you hear that? Something's just hit the outside of my helmet now. There's only glass in the front bit. Let me just spin around. Did you hear any? Did you hear something there? Did you hear just like some taps? I'm not liking that much. My hands are down by my sides. My feet, almost the second that I eased my way down again, became instantly frozen. And yet I just clearly heard some taps before. I don't know whether you picked them up, but I don't want to hear them again. I've kind of swung around and there's just blackness wherever you go. Complete and utter blackness. And it's pump, you buggers up there. The only air that I can suck in comes into the helmet, and there's this little gadget on the back of the helmet that apparently gets rid of bad air and allows new air in, but I think because it's very old, I think it also takes away the good air too sometimes. My lungs feel, instead of filling my chest, it's like two little pockets of air instead, and it's frankly not enough. Oh, just under the boat there's a fish, followed by, and then straight after it there was 3 or 4 other fish. I don't know what they were, though. Kind of trouty-like fish. I wouldn't be able to know the differences. Although, lots of seaweed moving around, and even late at night, here in Loch Ness, the current is very, very strong. Every now and then you get a kind of you feel your body kind of moving and rolling with the water. And, you know, we've had the horrific tsunamis that we've had across the world. We've had more than we could do with in the past 20 years. The power of large bodies of water, it's phenomenally strong. And do you know, I'm not doing anything here. I'm not moving about, and yet it's using extraordinary amounts of energy just to keep hanging here, and occasionally moving your arm just to keep you straight, looking at that boat. What's that? There's something just in the darkness past the bottom of the boat. It's what's that? Oh, hang on a second, I think it's going to go over my head if I look up. The problem is it's so dark outside. There's something going. Can't move my head too far back because the metal clasp at the back of the helmet won't let you hit it. I think it's something like a fallen tree or something. It's just kind of... When you first see that, you think, oh my God, what... As Nessie paid me a visit, it looked just like a big kind of tree stump or log or something, but it was about 6 or 7 foot long. If it was Nessie, it should be bigger than that, bless her. People talk about... Did you get some more noise there? Did you hear something else hit my helmet there? There's stuff in the water, but you think it... You hear that again? Listen. When I suggested that down here, well, not even down here, 10, 15 feet up, where the surface of the loch is, I suggested a long time ago that the Loch Ness Monster could actually be a ghost, could be a spirit, could be a full-bodied apparition travelling across the surface of the water, like many seamen off the North Sea have witnessed. You know, in areas where ships have been lost, and suddenly out of the mist in the middle of the night, something just looms at them, and it's kind of man shape. But could that not be the shape of, like, Nessie's head? And if that's the case, then we're in the wrong place, and this is a stupid, dumb thing to do. I must admit, it feels even more stupid and dumb at the present moment. My nose is blocked. I'm having to do all my breathing with my mouth. I don't know. It might be something to do with, like, pressure, maybe, or my ears occasionally have popped. But you know, you can't hold your nose and kind of blow out to clear the pop. And my right ear's really, really hurting. I've got a bit of pressure pain in there. You know, like the same kind of thing that maybe you experience when you're taking off in an airplane. You know, that sucker sweet kind of. Wish I had one now, but I'm down here to tell you what I can see, and out of my vision is I just move around. You guys move really, really slowly as I move around to face the blackness again. Your eyes get kind of used to seeing what little light there is there, but there's a little bit of light off the board behind me, so it lights up a bit of an area. However, every now and then you see a little bit of blackness that just looks slightly darker than everything else around it. It seems to be moving, and I don't know whether that's just my eyes playing tricks and messing with my head, because it wouldn't be hard to do, because I am particularly frightened. I don't say that often when I'm doing stuff like this, but I'm not liking it much. Now, I need more air. I told them to really hammer the pump when I was down here. I don't know whether... I just feel so weak. So weak. I know it's been a hell of a week and we've done so much, but I just could... If I did just shut my eyes, I know I could just drift off, drift away. Under the boat at the present moment there's about 6 fish, and they're all kind of pecking at the light that's on the back end of the boat on the right. Oh, sorry, the left hand side. So I'm getting disorientated again. I think the lack of air is really making it kind of weird. So sorry. Please bear with me. Come on, Nessie! Where are you? Come on! Take a few tours. I can spare a toe or two. Try and get the middle one so I can still balance. Come on, Nessie. Come on, anything. If there's something in you. Let me see it. Come on. Alan Robson with you in Loch Ness. I just swerve around. I was kind of side on with the lights of the boat. I'm now to... Whoa, hang on, whoa! Whoa, can you feel that current? Whoa! Hang on, I'm kind of lying flat like I'm in bed. At the present, I'm just looking up and the boat's directly above me. Whoa! I got within about I thought I was going to crash into the bottom of the boat there. I'm kind of falling down a little bit, but that was just what created a wake like that to make it move so much. I saw even the bottom of the boat moved. I'm just trying to turn around and look into the black. Half of me wants to pray to see something. Half of me wants to frankly crap myself. Just black. Just billions of gallons of water. Billions. And we know there's huge catfish in here. We know sturgeon. I was hoping catfish would stay away from maybe the middle part, because it was the ones we were most worried about. I don't know whether they stay close to the shore. You always kind of get the impression that they're like bottom feeders. If so, how could that be, the Loch Ness Monster? Because every sighting's been made on the surface. I'm running out of air. Just a fish. I'm gonna go back to the surface. I'm not gonna get out the boat this time, because I know if I do, I'll not get back in. I'm just gonna go to the surface and get a little bit of air. Please bear with me in the meantime. Pull me up. I'm tugging the damn thing. Nobody's come on. Pay attention. I'm going up for some air. Text them. I'm pulling the damn thing. Oh, there we go. I'm going up. Be back with you soon. Alan Robson in Loch Ness. Away beyond the monster.
Right, he's come back to the surface, but he doesn't look too good. We need to give him some more oxygen. It's not working out, is it?
Angus has just said there, he's attaching that tube so we can get more oxygen there to give him more breathing space in there, so it should be safe with that, hopefully, but I'm still worried about it, mind.
I am. It's absolutely freezing up here. I can't imagine how he feels down there.
Well, that's the thing. It's choppy, it's black down there, the boat's rocking from side to side. He's going to be doing a lot of movement in there, and I would imagine panicking as well, because it's going to be pitch black down there. It's awful situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can't even see up here, can we? Hardly.
Not at all. I really want to get him back up, actually. I really want to get him back up now.
Since he's got the oxygen, should we just get him down straight away?
Well, okay.
He wants to do it.
But not for long, not for long,
let's get him back down now.
Alan Robson, Beyond the Monster.
everybody. Alan Robson with you. Yes, I am back underneath the water, and I must admit I feel 1,000 times better because I am indebted to Angus from the boat. Angus he's got an oxygen tank, and he let me suck on that tube. God bless him. And he just let me pump a bit of oxygen into me, and I must admit I feel better. I was starting to get a real headache. Now they've found a way to increase the amount of air. I don't know whether you can even tell it. It's in my head it sounds different. I don't know whether it sounds different to you wherever you are, but still need to keep sucking that air. But by what they're saying is that usually if they've got somebody using this kind of thing like they would have done in maybe the 1910s, 20s, 30s, 40s, they still use it occasionally for super keen Nessie hunters like myself. So it's been fully in working condition. But usually they say that anybody using this suit, first of all, would be walking on the surface, the underwater, beyond the ground though, so they'd be able to walk rather than float, and they certainly wouldn't be talking. They'd be saving their breath for doing the least thing, because underwater anything you do completely takes it out of you. Now, at the present moment, what the hell was that? Just saw something else. One of the guides of the loch said that if you see anything under the boat, the water will magnify the size of it. So, just seen a fish there that looked about 2 foot long, so it's probably a foot long. Just thinking if my private part should escape, we could have another monster scare all over the press. Oh dear. Everybody upstairs is just kind of wanting the best, wanting me to get something, and I want to get something too. But you just kind of hang here and you wait, and you can feel, even though your feet's absolutely bitter cold, your head's strangely warm, and you feel like it's impossible because it's so cold in here, yet I can feel sweat from the nape of my neck kind of running down the small of my back. Dear. If you're wondering what I'm doing, it's actually getting a little bit harder to spin around, and with my glove I'm just trying to wipe over the glass at the front. I don't know, something went past me that I think it was like old leaves just kind of plopping around under the water. You see sticks and bits of, to be honest, bits of, looks like poo, kind of floating by under the light area. It is attracting fish. Seen quite a lot of them now. Seen a couple of eels. It's a couple of eels right at the very beginning. Don't want to see any of the big boys, please, because they can't take a serious chunk out of you. You just kind of hang on. I'm going to turn and face the back. Gently. There you go. Facing into the blackness there. And you just kind of feel... So easy for your mind to play tricks with you. I could have sworn I saw something in the blackness, but on saying that, the least movement of a fish just kind of turning, and the light from the boat reflecting off scales might be enough to do something like that, but you never really... Oh, shut up! What's that? Something. Looking around. Something. I don't even think it actually hit me. Something went past me at speed. Right past my hands were... My hands are down by my side, and I felt something just go past the glove, and it kind of spun me round, and I didn't know what was happening there for a minute. If I shouted there, I'm sorry. God, I've never been in my life just... It's just pitch black. And when you look around to where it is, you see that bloody boat with the 4 lights in it. Whatever moved past me. Can I estimate speed? Speed bloody quick. Just, it was there, then it was gone. But you could feel the water moving past you. It more than a current. I didn't hear anything. Still can't breathe. My nose is totally blocked. And then you stare into the blackness, and I saw something like a glint, but it could be could just be a large fish or something. But that was moving. That was really, really moving. My God, that was moving. I think the backside of this suit's going to be heavier coming out of the water than it was going in. That was not funny. And you know, I'm staring away from the light at the present moment, and directly ahead of me there's just blackness that goes on forever. And yet, the more you look at it, the more it's like there's something there, kind of just out of reach, kind of watching you. Now, just come back, watching for it. If you ask me how big that whatever it was went past me, I don't think I've got any way of knowing. Could be 10 feet, could be 2 feet. And I know men are said to exaggerate about size. This was something that, on travelling past you at speed, made you move. Made the water just distort you. And I just spun on an axis, but not slowly like it is when I wave my hands. I just woof, I was gone. And then, of course, you think, did something hit you? And because you can't feel your legs, I've since kind of felt my legs are still there. The one place I can't actually see is I can't look down the front of the suit because only a certain point it's impossible to get the kind of the chin thing any further. I keep looking at that. Directly behind where the boat is, probably about, it's hard to estimate in the dark, but I'm guessing 20 or 30 feet behind the boat. I just feel there's something in this big black grey pea soup. I mean, the water's actually incredibly clear. During the day, when we've been out along the loch side, absolutely crystal clear. The most beautiful, clean water that if you put it in a glass, you wouldn't see loads of floaters or anything. This is a beautifully clean loch. And yet, just down 10 feet, and you've got a lot of kind of junk moving around here. And you see large pieces of what I presume to be weed that's just kind of moving by, and it moves by in a kind of ghostly way. It almost makes shapes like a spirit would, like an angel would. I keep looking back there, there's something in there, you know. For all those people who say that there's no such thing as a Loch Ness monster, there are Loch Ness monsters in here. There's not just a monster in here, there's monsters in here. Huge catfish, 14 feet. I don't think they'd be able to move as quickly as whatever that was that went past me. It could just be a really big fish, like a pike or something. It moved like a torpedo. It was like a seal taking off. Haven't seen any seals in Well, the shores. I keep looking at that place back there like this. God, there's something in there. Show yourself. Do you know when your eyes just keep being drawn to something? There's definitely something there. There's no question there's something there. Come on. There's a... The blackness of the loch is all around. It's everywhere. It is everywhere you look, and yet you look back in this one direction, and the blackness that's there seems to move. But it's moving in a way like it moves when it's down. It's moving around. Wish I could breathe better. My right shoulder is hurting a little bit. And the weight of the helmet. The helmet's very heavy and it's kind of cutting in my neck on my right hand side. I'm trying to move it around in the water, but it's shaking my arm because, God, that's sore. That's really sore. I'm kind of twist my arm around, try and use the muscles. There it is again, look at the bus. The lights of the boat fire straight down, but there's something out there. Something about 30, 40 yards behind the boat that you keep seeing a glimpse of something that is resembling. I'm guessing it's the scales of a fish. If it's not, what the hell is that? Oh, there's another wave. Oh, down you go. Whoa. Oh, dear. I'm not an expert at all about underwater currents and stuff and how it works, but from time to time you get the feeling that there's water rushing past you, but all over, not like a something moving past you, if that makes sense. And just like that, there's another one just as we speak, and it's making me, with my frozen below the waist and everything below the waist, I'll tell you, I'd be lucky to have a button mushroom at the present moment because it is absolutely freezing. Everything below the waist is just waving around and kind of lifting up because there's probably millions of gallons of water on the move there. It's bizarre. Oh, hang on, I'm going back down again and I'm right facing the boat. I got quite close to the boat there. When the water takes you in that direction, you worry you're going to end up hitting the boat you have no idea whether we're going to get anything tonight. It's you talk about a fishing expedition. The difference tonight is that you might do a fishing expedition for a television show, and essentially the cameraman stays there all day until you catch a damn thing. We could stay here forever and catch nothing. Although I must admit I've scared myself witless a little bit earlier on. I hope I didn't scream. I think I must be. Oxygen's becoming a bit of a problem. And there you go, sucked back to that. I'm staring around the other way now because something made me kind of turn around. There's more fish under the bottom of the boat than I've seen. There's probably about 30 or 40 fish of various sizes. There's one quite big one of a shape I've not seen before. Most of them are kind of shaped like a salmon would or a trout. No flat-fishy things, nothing like that there. But there's another one that's kind of more round, with quite a highish fin on its back. I've no idea what that is. Looks like a grey kind of, almost, what do you call that brown stuff that you make chimneys out of? It's kind of that sandy kind of, what the... Sorry. That's right. A friendly fish kind of just looked in my visor there. It's just Just kind of, all of a sudden you notice that there's two eyes. Just a fishy squid now. Just a little, probably about 3, 4, 5 inches. Ladies, I know what you mean. You don't want something 5 inches in your face. You just don't. Oh my goodness. I don't know what they've done, but I just felt like a wave of fresh air coming in. I don't know whether they've changed tanks or whatever it is they're doing up there, because I was told it's like a hand pump thing. But that Scottish lad Angus, who did the oxygen for me, is up there now, and he knows what he's doing. Previously it was just my lot with a hand pump, like you were initially instructed to do. Whoa, there's long water come. Whoa! Ooh, it's just like super strong current again. Super strong current. Oh, my shoulder's really sore. His hand's kind of cutting in. Whoa! Whoa, it's just, whoa! Something! Ah! What? I'm flapping about like a flag here. I'm upside down in the middle. Whoa! 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 There's water! What the heck? Ah! I've hit something! I've hit something! Ah! I'm upside down! Oh, what's that? Is that... What am I touching? I think it's... Oh, God, it's the boat. I'm flapping right up beside the boat. It's kind of like a roller coaster would just roll you up in the air, you know, like a swing. And there's so much water going past. The boat's moving from side to side, and I'm underneath the boat. I'm going to pull the cord, see if I can... I've got to get out of here. Oh, God, man. My shoulder, it's really cutting in now, because I'm upside down, and it's kind of pushing and pushing and pushing, pushing. Oh, I was still beside the boat. Well, I'm moving down a bit now, down a bit. There must be millions of gallons just moving around now. Is this a current thing, or is there something swimming about in there making stuff move? Wishful thinking. I'm flapping, still flapping. Whoa! 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 Joe! Stop! Shut! Oh, I can't swim. What am I doing here? Pull me up! But the thing is, I still think I'm a bit under the boat. Let me try and get back down there and pull the... There, yanked the boat twice. 3 times. Come on! That's it. I'm done. That's it. That is it. Well, I'm gonna... Look, I have to yank it again. I'm moving. Oh, but the water's still really choppy. Unbelievable. See you on the upside.
As you can probably tell, I am out of the helmet now, and I'm back on board a boat, and I'm at the very back of it, where I suppose you'd imagine millionaires sitting. My voice is kind of gone, my chest feels crushed, my shoulder is really, really sore. I can't honestly believe that I did that, because that was something that I guarantee you, no matter how long I live, I will never ever do anything like that again. As you can tell, we're heading back towards shore now. It's the boat is just rocking from side to side, and Richard, I think I've broken one of your mics there, the one that I took in when I was coming out, literally out of the water there. I think I snapped it. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. I'll get it back and have a little look at it when we're back at the hotel.
All right, man. So, Have I met with a monster? I think the point is there's a lot of stuff in this water. There's a lot of stuff flying around, and although the boat was lit beneath the water, there's an awful lot of blackness down there. And I think I probably at some point screamed like a girl, and I apologise for that. But talk about a place full of mystery. This is... I feel like I've achieved something. I do feel like, even if it's just kind of conquering the fear of water, because never been able to swim, but at least I know I can hang about like a lump of meat on the end of somewhere. My God, that was something. Finally, I must admit, if I shut my eyes now, I guarantee I would not wake up till possibly next year. I feel completely flat. Richard, you had a good time, and what's been your highlights?
Yeah, going out in the boat in the day was absolutely superb. Scenery was absolutely fantastic. But at night time on the boat, nothing can touch that. That was absolutely marvellous.
Marvellous, because I'm still here, I'll tell you. Kenny, you looked particularly relieved when I came up for the last time. Apart from the dunking I've just had, because you love Scotland now. Ever since we regressed you and you realised it was your homeland, you have actually come here and felt very, very at home.
Very much at home. Every time I come up now, I just think this is my place. You know, one day, no doubt, I'll come back here. Maybe it's when I'm not in the land of the living, and I think this is probably where I'll reside when I'm dead. I really do think that. I think that's that kind of place, because every time I come here, I feel really close to the place. I mean, once again, that cemetery was fantastic. It never fails to live up to its reputation, and the whole experience of Scotland, to me, you just can't beat it. There's no other feeling like coming here in the world.
Right, now Gayna's very first outside broadcast and trip away with a Night Owls programme. That's just Richard leaning on the horn, I think, there. You punched Richard very, very hard in the cemetery.
I did, yeah. Very hard.
Because he was fluttering around behind you and frankly scaring the pants off you.
I must say it was for a very good reason, though. We're standing at Bullskin Cemetery. I was scared out of my wits, and Richard, I was sort of dancing behind my back constantly for the entire evening, rustling his coat, had his big flat cap on, waterproof flat cap, and he deserved the punch.
Well, he certainly got a one too. Have you enjoyed your first trip into the unknown?
I have. It's been an absolutely amazing experience. Bullskin Graveyard, it's going to live with me forever.
There you go. We hope some of the memories that you have, maybe of that witch, the woman who was killed in a previous life, maybe you'll remember that. Some of you perhaps the blessing, and I hope that it brought you a little bit closer to maybe members of your family who have passed over. As for me, I want to sleep for 1,000 years. But it's you guys at home. You've helped support us, and we appreciate it very much, because when you spend your life in a little tiny black box, the ability to get out and do something amazing is quite a gift to us. We thank you for that. And just before we disappear, a big thank you to everybody at the King's Mills Hotel who have been there. Is this a hotel or what? What a fantastic hotel they've given us. Also, a huge thank you to the Tourist Board, the Highland Tourist Board, who have been stunning. Give it up for the Tourist Board, everybody. Come on, make some noise for them. Well done, everybody. And from me, Alan Robson, the entire crew, the entire team back at the ranch as well. Crystal Fish, good night. God bless you. And I wish you well.